Kang Hyunsu got offered a legendary Mad Master class that would make him a king and said, "Nah, I'm a blacksmith." My man got downgraded from potential world ruler to stubborn craftsman by his own damn choice. I am Kang, and my only goal is to shove this hammer down everyone's throat who said blacksmithing was useless. This guy was supposed to inherit everything as a master craftsman's son. But one day a fire ripped through his father's workshop. His old man fell into a coma. His face got roasted like barbecue. And his right hand, completely fucking useless. He got buried under 3 billion won in hospital bills, worked 10 years of manual labor with a crippled body, got rejected and exhausted and was told his dream was garbage. Hell, his hand probably shook every morning, reminding him he was a failure. And let me tell you, watching your destiny die while you're still breathing was nothing but a living nightmare for him. And to make things even worse, his dumbass friend Jihoon. This beautiful idiot blew 10 million won on a game capsule, begging him to try a wooden dummy challenge that 1.2 billion people failed, including Olympic champions and the world's strongest man. And this level 1 nobody with basic trash gear destroyed it in one hit while the entire world watched. Guys, please smash that like button harder than Kang hits metal. And subscribe if you're new. I need your support more than Kang needs his working hands. Now, let's continue. A voice commanded everyone to get into battle formation. They needed to defeat a huge monster that day, no matter what. One of the fighters angrily asked where the monster even was. Someone else warned him the monster was right behind him. The fighter turned around in shock and terror. At that crucial moment, another fighter appeared out of nowhere and slashed the monster with a decisive sword strike. The first fighter, who'd been in danger, and another companion just stared in astonishment. A white-haired elf also seemed surprised, wondering why he had come here. After the battle ended, the elf spoke with the rescuer. She apologized for any trouble she may have caused in the past, and told him he had saved her life and protected the peace of their tribe. She assured him she would never forget this kindness. A system message appeared. First achievement unlocked, an outsider who gained the trust of an elf. This granted him free movement in the elf race's territories. The elf added that her younger sister also had something to say to him. His sister stepped forward and reminded him of her previous offer for him to become her companion. Another achievement popped up, an outsider who gained an elf as a companion. This allowed him to use equipment of the elf race. The elf maiden agreed to his request, saying she would like that too. Then she hesitantly added one more word. The scene shifted to a joyous wedding ceremony. The bride and groom celebrated as the crowd cheered. The fighter and the elf maiden exchanged rings and kissed each other. A new achievement notification appeared, announcing that he was the first outsider to marry an elf woman. But suddenly a powerful voice interrupted and ordered it to stop. The scene changed completely. A man now stood on a stage in front of an audience. He told them he'd spent countless hours thinking about how to present what he was about to say. The man announced that the game Ares wasn't just a simple game. All the characters in it were equipped with artificial intelligence that allowed them to make their own decisions and act based on their own personalities. He described Ares as another world. The audience was stunned. One person asked if what they'd just seen was real gameplay footage. The presentation continued, asserting that Ares wasn't just a realistic game. Purium Lade had created a new world. This was achieved through superior artificial intelligence, from which a divine being was born. This god evaluated users itself and could grant them amazing abilities based on their achievements. The speaker explained that whoever received a revelation from the god of Ares would gain special powers. They could become a hero or even build their own forces and rule as a king. In short, players could achieve everything possible in reality, and even impossible things could be achieved in Ares. One of the attendees expressed his doubt about whether everything said was true, but decided he definitely wanted to try the game because of its amazing quality. Enthusiasm erupted among the audience as they chanted Mr. Legion's name and asked how to buy it, saying they wanted to start immediately. A comment appeared explaining that in the year 2045 the game Ares was developed. The reaction to it was resounding. Its impact wasn't limited to the gaming industry but extended to change the culture of the entire world. Its user count surpassed 1 billion in an instant. A year later, a new player stood in the beginner zone, looking around in astonishment. "This game is way more realistic than I heard," he said. Another player nearby expressed his deep admiration, noting that the experience felt like a real journey. One player suddenly realized something. A person's physical abilities in the real world were actually reflected inside the game. Interesting. One player drew his companion's attention to a scene in front of them. He pointed ahead. "Look at that." It was an event that had been in the game since launch, smashing a wooden dummy. And apparently 1.2 billion people had tried to accomplish it. All of them failed. It was rumored among players that success in the wooden dummy challenge granted the winner a very special Ares game capsule worth 50 million won, plus a 5-point increase in all their stats. Although the quest seemed simple, requiring only 10 strikes, the number of challengers had recently decreased, especially after a series of national sports representatives failed. Even the gold medalist hero Hanu failed to break it. For this reason there was much talk about this challenge, but the players just stood there gathered, none of them trying. They were all waiting for the arrival of humanity's true and final hope. Suddenly, a voice from the crowd asked them to make way. A burly man named Metis appeared, described as the strongest man among humans. The onlookers were surprised. Metis looked at the wooden dummy and pointed out, "So this is the same one Hanu failed to break." His size was so immense that some commented he didn't seem to be of their same race. Rumors spread that he could defeat a bear with his bare hands. His giant figure stood before the wooden dummy, making it look tiny beside him. Some speculated he might succeed in smashing it before even completing the 10 strikes. Metis announced confidently, "The precious capsule will be mine." Then he delivered a fierce blow to the dummy. The wooden dummy was pushed back a great distance by the blow. People wondered if a challenger would finally succeed this time. Meanwhile, elsewhere, 2 developers were watching the scene on their monitors. One of them expressed hope, saying he wished Metis would succeed so the protest calls pouring in would stop. But his colleague seemed worried. "If this man also fails after Hanu, it'll cause a huge mess," he said. His colleague explained that the next day's newspaper headlines would be filled with accusations. Things like company created impossible quest to attract attention, and Ares is obsessed with recruiting users and making money. The employee concluded, "If he fails, it means we'll have to interfere with the Ares system." An unprecedented action. His colleague wondered if the CEO would accept that, but she insisted firmly, "You're the team leader, you have to get it done." She threatened to resign if he didn't succeed. Back in the game, a message appeared on the screen. "Quest failed. Please try again." Medios was in a state of shock. He couldn't believe he had failed. In the office, the team leader put his hand on his face in despair. "We're in trouble," he muttered. His colleague suggested they run away quickly before the protest calls started. She jokingly invited him to dinner on her treat. At that moment, another employee called them over. "Team leader, a new challenger is stepping up." The team leader asked indifferently, not even looking up, "Does he look like he'll succeed?" The employee explained that the new challenger was wearing the basic gear a player gets when creating a character. His weapon looked like it was from the cash shop, but many players who relied on such tools had already failed. The employee apologized, "Sorry for saying something unnecessary." The team leader reassured him it was okay. He too had had moments of hope. He then decided to go for dinner and come back later. But as he was turning to leave, he and his colleague heard a loud and sudden sound. They wondered in astonishment where it came from. It was the sound of the new challenger delivering a devastating blow to the wooden dummy. After that, a global message appeared congratulating him, announcing he was the first user to successfully destroy the wooden dummy, and that he'd gained 5 points for all his stats and 200 fame points. The team leader and his colleagues stood in complete shock, wondering what had just happened and who this skilled player could be, especially since Madosok had been their last hope. Then the team leader realized the amazing truth. This hero was most likely just an ordinary person. In the office, the stunned team leader ordered his colleague to look up the grade of the sword the challenger had used. The employee told him that the search result was a bit strange, to which the team leader replied that this was normal. It would have been strange if it weren't. She then revealed the details, explaining that the sword was of epic grade with an attack power of 143 and full durability, and had a usage restriction requiring level 40 or higher, with no restrictions on its creator. The team leader was extremely shocked upon hearing that the sword was epic, and began to wonder about the identity of this mysterious man and what his true nature was. The scene shifted to a dream, or maybe a memory, where the clang of metal echoed in a blacksmith's workshop. The protagonist remembered the blazing fire that was capable of stealing all the sweat from his body, and saw an image of his father working hard in front of the furnace. In the dream, the young man looked at his tired hands and then at his father, telling him that he had returned. The young man embraced his father, vowing to protect him. But the dream quickly turned into a horrifying nightmare. The young man found his father surrounded by flames, screaming from the intense heat, and the son screamed in terror, begging his father to get out of the fire and urging him to escape. The young man woke up suddenly, panting and with tears in his eyes, realizing he'd had the same dream again. The next scene appeared in the real world, specifically in the lobby of a hospital in Seoul, Korea, where the young man named Kim Ji-hoon thought ironically about the people who still clung to the hope of breaking the wooden dummy, realizing that physical strength alone wasn't enough for that. A friend interrupted him, annoyed, reminding him that he'd asked him not to call during the day. Ji-hoon justified his action by saying he couldn't meet him in the evening because of his work and that he couldn't even enter Ji-hoon's father's room at the hospital. His friend sighed and asked what he wanted, and Ji-hoon commented on his heavy clothes, asking if he wasn't feeling hot. His friend gave him a threatening look and asked if he wanted to die, to which Ji-hoon immediately apologized. Then Ji-hoon got to the point and asked his friend if he'd heard of the game Ares, explaining that it was the most famous game at the moment and operated with a superior artificial intelligence. Then he told him about a special event for beginners in the game, explaining that no one had succeeded in this event yet. Even prominent celebrities had failed, but the prize for success was a VIP gaming capsule worth 50 million won. His friend replied coolly, questioning the point of trying if a billion people had already failed. adding that he didn't play video games in the first place. Ji-hoon admitted that it would be difficult, but asserted that it wasn't impossible, then told his friend that when it came to breaking that wooden dummy, he might have a chance, which puzzled his friend. Ji-hoon took his friend to a place with gaming capsules, revealing that he'd prepared a standard Ares gaming capsule for him worth 10 million won, which shocked his friend. His friend commented that the game was expensive and yet 1 billion people played it, to which Ji-hoon replied that it was worth the investment. He added that if things went well, players could get amazing rewards and even trade with real-world currency, which was why everyone was flocking to it. Ji-hoon finished his explanation and suggested they go in, revealing that he'd tried the game a little himself. Ji-hoon's friend asked about the source of the expensive gaming capsule, but Ji-hoon ignored the question and urged him to think about how much money they could earn through it. His friend doubted it, questioning if there was any guarantee of profit and calling his friend's idea crazy. Ji-hoon defended his idea enthusiastically, insisting it was an investment and that his friend had a real chance. His friend demanded he explain the basis for this supposed opportunity. Ji-hoon revealed the secret of his confidence, the existence of the blacksmith class in the game Ares, and then he addressed his friend as Kang Hyun-soo, revealing his true identity as the only son of a world-renowned master craftsman and his sole heir. Ji-hoon wondered how a wooden dummy could pose a challenge to someone with Kang's skills. Kang removed his hat, revealing scars on his face, and told his friend that he'd never seen his true condition since the accident, saying this was his situation now and admitting he wasn't in a state to try anything. Past memories showed the horrific accident, which was a massive fire, and Kang remembered running through the flames, screaming for his father, trying to wake him up and save him from the fire. Kang recounted how that accident took everything from him. He barely survived, but his father never regained consciousness, and his family was too poor to cover the exorbitant medical costs. Kang was forced to work in strenuous manual labor jobs, and after spending 10 years in his father's footsteps, he remembered the hammer he used to forge countless metals, but even that work had now become a thing of the past, something he could no longer do. Kang explained to his friend that since the accident, he'd been unable to use the strength in his right arm, making manual labor difficult. He told him he would take care of his own problems, but appreciated his attempt to help, then asked him to return the capsule, calling him a fool for wasting 10 million won, and then left, saying it was time for his part-time job. Ji-hoon shouted at him, calling him the real fool, and revealed that he knew about his difficult financial situation and how he struggled monthly to pay his father's hospital bills, wondering how long he could continue like this. Ji-hoon continued his confrontation, asking him about his life and future and whether he would leave his injured body as it is forever, insisting that this game could fix everything. He reminded him that the full cost of treatment was about 3 billion won, a fantastical amount, but that didn't mean he should give up. Ji-hoon reminded him of his old passion and dream of living as a blacksmith for the rest of his life, and shouted enthusiastically that he could achieve that in the game Ares. Ji-hoon vowed to take responsibility for the 10 million won and begged him to listen to him just once, pleading with him to give it just one try and promising he wouldn't pressure him after that. The memory of the fire and his trapped father flashed again in Kang's mind, who stood silently looking at his trembling and weak right hand as the scene shifted to a construction site where his work was supposed to begin. At the construction site, Kang tried to focus on his work, thinking that his friend Ji-hoon had filled his head with pointless ideas and telling himself he must hurry and earn money for his father's treatment. But as he worked, a loud clang of metal echoed in his heart, awakening a deep nostalgia for his past, and in the end, involuntarily, Kang found himself returning to the place with the game capsules, admitting that the sound of metal had led him there. His friend's enthusiastic words about his dream of living as a blacksmith and how he could achieve it in Ares echoed in his mind, and he fondly remembered the blazing fire and the ring of metal that was part of his life, deciding to enter the game and vowing to his father that he would hear that sound again. Upon entering, system messages welcomed him to the world of Ares and announced the start of character creation. He was asked to set a nickname, and Kang chose Kang, and after that the character customization process began. Kang was surprised when the system started analyzing his body type and discovered that the scar on his face from the accident had also appeared on his character in the game. After the analysis was complete, the system asked if he wished to proceed with this appearance, and after a moment of hesitation, Kang agreed. The character creation process ended, and the search for a server began. As soon as he entered the game world, Kang noticed two amazing things. The scar on his face had disappeared, and more importantly, the strength had fully returned to his right hand. He thought of his friend Ji-hoon and realized he now owed him 10 million won and decided he would work hard to repay this debt. He was then summoned to a random area and transported to the beginner's zone in the Ban region, specifically to Len's blacksmith workshop, and inside he found an old blacksmith struggling with his work, vowing that he would never give up and determined to forge a sword that surpasses that of an opponent of his. The blacksmith was striking the metal with force, desperately pleading for his attempt to succeed, when Kang calmly interrupted him, telling him that this wasn't the right way to do it, which startled the blacksmith. The blacksmith was surprised by the presence of a stranger and asked what he just said, and Kang repeated that the way the blacksmith was working wasn't the proper way. The blacksmith got angry and asked Kang with disdain, being just a kid and a stranger, what he could possibly know about blacksmithing, and Kang told him he would never make a strong sword this way. Kang explained that he knew it was none of his business, but he couldn't stand by and watch the blacksmith sincerely try to forge a great sword in the wrong way. The blacksmith scoffed at his words, wondering if he was talking as if he really knew how to do it. And after a moment of thought, the blacksmith decided he had nothing to lose, and handed the hammer to Kang, challenging him to show what he could do. He told him he would watch him closely to see if he had the skills to back up his confidence. Kang thought to himself that his original plan was to approach the blacksmith and ask to use his workshop, but this development might also be in his favor. And then he turned to the blacksmith and told him he had one condition. The blacksmith was surprised by Kang's condition, who explained that if he proved his skills he must be allowed to keep the sword he made, and in return Kang promised to show him something worth watching, and the blacksmith called him arrogant. The blacksmith laughed, saying he liked this confidence, and hoped it would last, but he warned Kang that if he failed, he would pay the price for his arrogance, which Kang agreed to. Kang picked up the hammer and thought that 3 years had passed, admitting to himself that despite speaking confidently he wasn't sure if he still had the talent. But as soon as he started striking the metal, the familiar feeling returned and he felt confidence fill him. Realizing he could do it, and images of his sick father and his friend Jahoon flashed through his mind, driving him to work with all his determination as if asking them to wait a little longer. Forgotten feelings began to return to him. From the familiar clang of steel to the burning heat on his skin, he felt overjoyed to be back in his natural place, realizing that his body still remembered the craft and that his confidence that he could succeed was renewed. The old blacksmith watched his work, and at first he thought Kang was just a bad imitator, but he soon admitted that his form wasn't bad and that he must have some experience. However, the blacksmith believed this was the furthest Kang could go and was puzzled by his overwhelming happiness while working, believing that enjoying work didn't matter because results were everything in this world, and without a special skill, Kang would inevitably hit a dead end. He felt that his decision to let him try was a waste of time because it was impossible for a player in the beginner's area to have a skill in blacksmithing. It was late in the forge, and the blacksmith couldn't tear his eyes away from what Kang was doing. Wait, what the hell? The kid was folding the metal, reheating it, tempering it, then doing it all over again. The blacksmith's jaw dropped. It was so simple. How had he never thought of this? The technique was designed to increase strength while eliminating impurities. But still, the blacksmith wasn't convinced. It had to be some kind of trick, right? He decided to use his special skill to check the metal's grade. The result flashed in front of his eyes. The steel had jumped from grade D to grade C. He couldn't believe it. Sure, he'd forged grade C steel before, but never this quickly. Never like this. The blacksmith had to admit it. The kid wasn't just talking nonsense, but this had to be his limit. There was no way he could push it further. Without real skill, Kang was just like him. Nothing special. Time dragged on. The blacksmith kept watching, his eyelids growing heavier and heavier until finally he dozed off. When he woke up, he jolted upright. It was late. Really late, and to his shock, Kang was still at it. The kid hadn't stopped. He was hammering away with the same intense focus, his movements precise and relentless. The blacksmith stared in disbelief. How the hell wasn't this guy tired? Dawn broke. The first rays of light crept into the forge, and finally, Kang stopped. He set down his hammer. A new message appeared in front of the blacksmith's eyes. Steel, grade B. The blacksmith's heart nearly stopped. Grade B? Without any special skill? That was impossible. But then he noticed something that made his blood run cold. Kang wasn't done. He was picking up his hammer again. The blacksmith's eyes widened. Was this kid seriously aiming for an even higher grade? After a long night of grinding away at the forge, Kang finally stopped. His arms felt like lead. His whole body ached. Had he pushed himself too far? The old blacksmith stepped forward, clearly impressed by what he'd just witnessed. He offered, "Let me help you finish this." Kang nodded, grateful. "Thanks, I could use the help." They worked together, hammering out the final details of the raw metal. When they finished, the blacksmith just stood there, staring at it in complete awe. His hands were trembling slightly. This is a grade A ingot," he whispered. "Do you understand what this means? With this, I could forge a rare grade sword. I never thought it was possible. Not here. Not in this beginner's village." He looked at Kang with wide eyes. "I have a skill, you see. It lets me see the grade of any item. And in all my years I've never seen a magic grade item here, let alone a rare grade. This metal, this could make a one-of-a-kind sword." But Kang shook his head. "It's too early to celebrate." The blacksmith blinked, confused. Kang continued, "I still need to finish the handle, and the blade needs to be polished to a much finer edge. The sword has to withstand immense force without breaking. Right now the edge is still far from perfect." The blacksmith let out a laugh. It was the kind of laugh that came from genuine surprise. I've never met anyone as strange as you, kid. Kang shrugged. I've always loved blacksmithing since I was a child. The blacksmith's expression softened. Then, an idea seemed to spark in his eyes. Why don't you try forging the sword again? But this time, use a different material, something special. He disappeared into the back of the forge and returned carrying something that made Kang's breath catch. It was a large piece of ore glowing faintly with an ethereal light. Mithril. The blacksmith held it carefully, almost reverently. This is a family heirloom, passed down through generations. Kang stared at it, stunned. Why are you giving me something so precious? The blacksmith smiled. Because I learned a lot thanks to you. This ore, it's far beyond my skills. I could never do it justice. But you? I want to see what kind of sword a true master could make with it. Kang's heart raced. Mithril. A legendary metal he'd only read about in stories. He'd never actually worked with it before. It was a risk, but how could he refuse an offer like this? All right, he said, I'll do it. The blacksmith shifted awkwardly, looking almost embarrassed. Could I call you master? Kang's expression went flat. No, the blacksmith blinked. But, if you insist on calling me that, I won't use the mithril. The blacksmith immediately threw up his hands in surrender. Okay, I get it. 1 month later it was finally done. The legendary sword Daylight. An epic-grade weapon with immense attack power and special abilities. A sword like this? It would never be seen again in the beginner's zone. Not in a million years. Back at the Purium Company Center, the developers were still glued to their screens, reviewing the insane events surrounding this level 1 player. Kang. The team leader leaned back in his chair, shaking his head in disbelief. His colleague snapped at him. Get back to work already. She scrolled through her files. There's barely any information on this guy. Then her eyes lit up. Wait, here's his basic info. Kang Hyunsu, 23 years old. He logged in from an acquaintance's house. And I pulled this from his application for the VIP capsule prize. Oh, and he specifically requested to keep his real-world identity confidential. Very strongly, actually. The developers exchanged confused glances. Why would anyone want to stay anonymous? The team leader crossed his arms, thinking it over. He must have his own reasons. Fame's coming for him, whether he likes it or not. Maybe he's trying to avoid it for as long as possible. The team leader suddenly sat up. Where is he now? His colleague checked the system. He just entered the hunting training center. Inside the training center, a gruff-looking trainer named Relson spotted Kang and immediately rolled his eyes. Listen, kid, this is where the real monsters start showing up. You're level 1. You've got no chance of passing this test. Do yourself a favor and leave. Go hunt some rabbits or something. Come back when you're ready. But Kang didn't budge. He knew something Relson didn't. His stats were insane, way higher than what should be possible at level 1. I won't waste your time, Kang said confidently. Relson let out a long, bored sigh. Fine, whatever. Pick a sword and follow me. Kang shook his head. If any sword will do, I'd prefer to use my own. Here's the thing. Kang had spent an entire month in the beginner zone. Most players cleared it in 30 minutes, but not him. That month of grinding had resulted in a massive boost to his basic stats, and on top of that, he was carrying the only epic grade sword in the entire area, Daylight. But somehow, he was still level 1, still without a class. It didn't make sense, but that was about to change. Meanwhile, back at the management center, the team leader Kim Tae-suk was pacing nervously. Should we really be leaving everything to the super AI Ares? No intervention at all. A high-ranking company executive stood nearby, arms crossed. He shared the concern, but then he smiled, confident. Don't worry. What's waiting for Kang is a legendary class offer. He'll be fine. Back in the game, Relson was getting more annoyed by the second. This kid wanted to use a sword he made himself? Relson shook his head in disgust. How pitiful. Throwing away your future for a worthless profession like blacksmithing. What a waste. The test began. Relson gestured toward the training grounds. This place is crawling with monsters. A trained swordsman is far more important than any shoddy weapon you could forge. He shot Kang a sarcastic look. Why is someone who wants to be a blacksmith even here? A notification popped up in front of Kang. Affinity with Relson decreased. Kang didn't flinch. He'd seen this reaction countless times in the real world. People always looked down on blacksmithing. They called it a useless dream. But here, in Ares, his efforts could finally be acknowledged. His hard work could mean something. Kang met Relson's eyes. Who's the most prominent swordsman you've ever trained? Relson blinked, caught off guard. Kang continued, his voice calm but firm. I want a tougher test than the one they took. Inside, Relson's blood boiled. The arrogance of this beginner. Sure, he was just an instructor, but he knew talent when he saw it. And this kid? He had none. Still, the provocation stung. Relson forced a smile. Fine, I'll give you a special trial. He led Kang to another area, his tone dripping with condescension. I only give these trials to the rare few who show true promise. The highest record here is the 3rd stage trial. He raised his hand and a monster materialized in front of them. A swift goblin. Level 6. Relson looked at Kang. Are you sure about this? If you fail, you'll be banned from the center for a full week. Kang didn't even hesitate. Is the third stage the final trial? Relson froze. What? Kang's expression was completely serious. I'd like to take on all the trials up to the final stage. That was it. Relson snapped. This arrogant little brat was looking down on his training, testing his patience. Fine, he shouted. You want the final stage? You've got it. He summoned the fourth and final stage trial monster, a mad goblin. Level 15. The air grew heavy as the creature appeared, its eyes wild and bloodthirsty. Relson smirked bitterly to himself. Almost no one in the world has managed to pass the third stage, and no one has ever surpassed the fourth. The fight began. The mad goblin lunged forward, its claws slashing through the air with terrifying speed. But Kang moved like water, dodging each attack with precision. His eyes were calm, focused. Any blacksmith worth their salt can see the latent power a weapon holds. He gripped daylight tightly. Activate skill, durable sword. A faint glow surrounded the blade. His physical defense surged. The goblin roared and attacked again. But this time Kang was ready. The sword released a surge of immense power. Kang's eyes blazed with confidence. No weapon here can surpass mine. With one clean strike he took down the swift goblin from the previous stage. But before he could catch his breath, another goblin appeared out of nowhere and landed a vicious blow straight to his side. Relson winced. That was a critical hit. Instant. That's why swift goblins are the nightmare of beginners. He crossed his arms, shaking his head. No matter how good the weapon, it's worthless without skill. This kid is done for. But then Relson's eyes widened. Kang was still standing. His health bar read 82%. He'd survived a critical hit. Kang glanced at his stats, breathing heavily. All that time I spent crafting weapons, it boosted my strength and vitality way beyond what it should be at level 1. Relson's expression shifted. The real danger begins now. The mad goblin let out a horrifying screech and activated its special skill, Thorns of Madness. Suddenly, Kang's vision blurred. His head spun. He could barely see straight. Relson watched, impressed but resigned. He performed well, but this is his end. The battle will end here. But Kang gritted his teeth. Focus. Trust the weapon you made. Do everything in your power. He tightened his grip on daylight. Activate passive skill, Swift Blade. His attack speed skyrocketed. Kang unleashed a flurry of rapid strikes, each one faster than the last. This is how I close the gap in levels. Back at the management center, the developers were glued to their screens, mouths hanging open. Is this really happening? One of them whispered. With one final devastating blow, Kang cut down the remaining goblins. They collapsed in a heap. Relson stood frozen for a moment. Then he broke into a wide grin and shouted, "You did it. You did what no one else could." He rushed forward, excitement flooding his voice. That strike, it seemed random, but every movement drew out the true power of the blade. You must have trained in swordsmanship before, right? Kang shook his head. I only learned that a blacksmith should be able to handle the weapons he makes, nothing more. Relson's eyes drifted to Kang's arms. They were covered in scars, muscles built from countless hours of hammering and forging. Relson's expression softened with respect. This is a true blacksmith. I apologize for my rudeness earlier. A notification appeared. Affinity with Relson maximized. Relson hesitated, then spoke carefully. Out of respect for your talent, have you ever considered becoming a mad? At that exact moment, a glowing window materialized in front of Kang. Class change quest. Available legendary class Mad Lord. Back at the management center, chaos erupted. What? This is impossible, one developer shouted. This doesn't make any sense. The team leader stared at the screen, stunned. Just the offer of the legendary Mad Lord class that automatically classifies him as a second-tier user. He'll require special management now. But then his expression grew serious. If he accepts this class change quest, there's no turning back. The Mad Lord leads hundreds of knights. He'll become a protector of the world. In the game, Relson practically begged him. Accept it. With your talent you could become a king among knights. But Kang shook his head. His voice was calm but firm. I'm a blacksmith, not a knight. Silence. Everyone both in the game and back at the management center was stunned. Did he just refuse a legendary class? Then Relson burst into laughter. It wasn't mocking. It was pure admiration. Your persistence, it's truly wonderful. Kang thought to himself. I thought I'd never hold a hammer again. But in this game, my life as a blacksmith is starting over. A new beginning. Relson accepted his decision with a smile. All right then. He handed Kang a sealed letter. This is a letter of recommendation for a hidden quest. Take it to the local lord. Then he pulled out a piece of worn, rusty armor. This was worn by a former Mad Lord. It's seen better days, but I'm confident you'll find a use for it. He clapped Kang on the shoulder. Prove yourself. Achieve what others couldn't. Kang nodded. I'll do my best. At the management center, the developers exhaled in relief. He's overcome his biggest crisis, the team leader said. The spark of potential is still there. One of them leaned back in his chair, grinning. Kang has just begun his path to become the god of blacksmithing. System messages flashed across Kang's vision. Tutorial training period complete. Main quest unlocked. The real game begins now. But before he could take another step, everything went black. He was suddenly logged out. When his eyes opened, he was back in reality, lying on the floor of his friend's apartment. The first thing that hit him, bills. He had to pay the gas bill. He scrambled for his phone and checked his bank account, almost empty. His chest tightened. His priority was clear. His father's hospital fees and their living expenses. Everything else came second. His phone rang. It was Jaehoon. Hey, did you finish the training zone? Kang rubbed his eyes. Yeah, just got to the village. Jaehoon's voice exploded with excitement. Perfect. Listen, head to the auction house first. That's where you sell items for gold. And gold. You can exchange it for real money. That's the real reason I got you into Aries, man. There was a pause. Then Jaehoon's tone softened. I've never seen anything more wonderful than the swords you and your father used to make. Kang's throat tightened. Jaehoon continued, his voice full of conviction. Once you get that VIP capsule with 99.9% synchronization, your experience will be even more insane. So flood the world with the works of the greatest blacksmith. You got this. Kang felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. Thanks, really. After the call ended, he sat there for a moment, staring at the ceiling. His path was clear now. Focus on crafting and quests. Earn gold. Convert it to real money. But to pull that off, he'd need stamina. Lots of it. Kang stood up. Time to start exercising. As he ran, his legs burning, Kang thought about how much energy gaming actually consumed. Sure, it didn't compare to the brutal physical toll of real blacksmithing, but it still drained you. He pushed himself harder, sweat dripping down his face. He made a silent vow to his father. I'll endure. I'll make sure you wake up again. No matter what it takes. Back in the world of Aries, Kang headed straight for the auction house. The interface popped up in front of him, asking him to choose a shop name. He didn't hesitate. Hyan's Blacksmith. The system processed his request, and a loading bar appeared. Shop tool is being created. Please wait. When it finished, a notification flashed across his screen. You now have the ability to use the auction panel anytime, anywhere. Kang looked at his inventory. What should I sell first? Then he remembered. He had one prototype he'd made back in the workshop. He pulled up the details. Hyan's first sword. Rare grade. He did some quick research. The average market price for similar swords is about 70 gold pieces. His friend's words echoed in his head. Don't sell it too cheap. Kang set the price at 100 gold pieces and listed it. All right. While I wait, I'll explore the village systems. An alert was sent out to all players. New item listed on the auction board. Elsewhere, a player was scrolling through the auction house when he suddenly froze. What the hell? The auction board had exploded with activity, all because of one unusual post. The bidding price for Kang's sword was climbing fast. 150 gold, 200 gold, 300 gold. It just kept going. A member of the Golden Shield Guild noticed it too. His eyes went wide. He sprinted to find the vice captain. Sir, you need to see this. The vice captain looked up, annoyed at the interruption. What is it? The guild member pulled up the listing. This sword. The creator is a level 1 player. No class. He made the best sword from the most primitive raw materials, and it even has an option for enhancement. The vice captain's irritation faded. Using low-quality materials for enhancement reduces the chance of success. So the creator was clever. He saved costs. He scrolled through the stats. With a small investment, this weapon could remain effective up to level 50. Then he noticed something else. The sword's name. Hyan's first sword. It's the first piece from this craftsman. That makes it valuable for collectors. Being the first to discover and purchase the work of this talented craftsman, that's priceless. Proceed with the purchase. Meanwhile, Kang was pacing nervously. He felt embarrassed. What if no one buys it? It was just a practice piece. Suddenly a notification appeared. Hyan's first sword has been sold. Kang's heart stopped. Already. He scrambled to check the final selling price. His eyes nearly bulged out of his skull. 1,008 gold pieces. He'd listed it for 100. It sold for over 10 times that amount. He did the math in his head. That's over 1 million Korean won. He stood there, frozen, overwhelmed by a mixture of happiness and disbelief. This is real. This is actually happening. Another notification popped up. Buyer, Golden Shield Guild. Then came a message. Congratulations on your sale. We would like to offer you an exclusive sales contract or an invitation to join our guild. Kang stared at the message. His hands were shaking. Kang quickly looked up information about the guild. His jaw dropped. The Golden Shield Guild was a massive blacksmithing guild with 780,000 followers. His mind flashed back to Jaehoon's words. Gaining followers is way harder than leveling up. A large follower count means serious user interest, and that interest, it translates directly into profit. Kang checked the follower count for his own shop. Hyan's Blacksmith, 82 followers. He winced, but then he opened his message box. It was flooded. Guild invitations. Dozens of them. From all kinds of guilds. His heart raced. Ares is the place waiting for blacksmiths who are disappearing from reality. The value of a craftsman's skills shines even brighter here, backed by precise data and numbers. But Kang shook his head. It's not time to join a guild yet. He closed the messages and pulled up his quest log. The Lord's castle. That's where his true worth would be proven. That's where it all begins. Inside the castle, Lord Vance sat with his advisor Bell, looking troubled. Is repairing this artifact truly impossible? Bell folded his hands, his tone measured and careful. My lord, the restoration process carries a significant risk of failure. If we fail, the artifact could be lost forever. That's why we must find the best restoration expert on the continent. Vance sighed. And that expert is only in the capital, correct? Bell nodded. Yes, and he's an eccentric man. He refuses to meet with anyone. Summoning him would be difficult. The Lord's expression grew sad. He looked down at the bow resting on the table in front of him. Its surface was charred and damaged. I cannot abandon the affairs of my territory to go myself. But this bow, it's uniquely shaped. It's my father's only legacy. Bell's eyes flickered with something cold. In reality, he was a level 100 scammer player disguised as a blacksmith. He'd spent an entire week gaining the Lord's trust. All for this moment, Bell said smoothly. My lord, allow me to take the bow to the capital for restoration. For 300 gold pieces I can handle everything. The Lord hesitated, considering the offer. But before he could respond, the door burst open. Kang strode in confidently. The bow can be restored right here, on the spot. Bell's face darkened. Inside, he was seething. This brat is about to ruin everything. The Lord looked at Kang in shock. You can really repair the burnt bow, here in the castle? Without needing to take it to a blacksmith shop? He turned to one of his guards. Who is this man? The guard stepped forward. My lord, he came with a letter of recommendation from Instructor Relson. The Lord blinked in surprise. Relson, from the beginner training center? He studied Kang more closely, then straightened in his seat. As the lord of this land, I officially ask you, tell me about your skills and experience. Kang stood tall and introduced himself. My name is Kang. I'm level 1. My class is unemployed. Bell exploded. What? His face turned red with fury. A level 1 player dares to speak so arrogantly in front of the Lord? He pointed a finger at Kang, his voice rising. Restoration is a skill only learned by blacksmiths above level 80. You're interfering with work. I spent an entire week on get out. But Kang didn't flinch. His voice was calm, steady. You're mistaken. This bow is not a recurve bow. Bell froze. Kang continued. It's a gakgyeong, a traditional Korean composite bow. Confusion spread across the faces of both the Lord and Bell. They'd never heard that name before. Kang turned to the Lord. I heard the story from the guard, Baker. You wish to restore your late father's burnt bow. It was a gift from a mysterious foreigner, correct? The Lord nodded slowly. Yes, the bow was one of a kind. I'd never seen anything like it in this land before. But then his expression hardened. However, I've grown weary of being deceived by strangers making false claims about my family heirloom. So only speak words you can prove. Kang met his gaze. I need to confirm one thing. This bow, despite being a gift from a foreigner, was actually made in this very land, wasn't it? The Lord's eyes widened slightly. Kang gestured toward the hallway. I saw a painting of a water buffalo in the hall. Its horns are considered a precious material, even in my world. But what really caught my attention was the bow's curvature. He stepped closer. It was made using whale sinew instead of cow sinew. Am I right? The Lord stared at him stunned. Then he let out a long breath. You're right. He looked at the bow with a mixture of sadness and pride. The foreigner was my father's friend, a blacksmith. The materials were local and rare. Giant water buffalo horns from the Barden swamps, whale sinew from Barden Harbor. With these precious materials he gifted my father the best bow ever made in Barden. The Lord glanced at Bell, who stood there silently, his face pale. Even Bell, supposedly a level 100 blacksmith, had missed these details. The Lord turned back to Kang, his voice filled with emotion. I have a strong desire to save my father's memento. I officially ask you to restore the bow. A quest notification appeared in front of Kang. Quest accepted. Restore the Lord's bow. Reward 500 gold pieces. The Lord waved his hand dismissively. Bell, leave us for now. Bell bowed stiffly, his head low, and left the room. But inside he was seething. As Bell walked away, his fists clenched at his sides. Inside he was seething with rage. That bastard. He ruined everything. I spent a week on this. A whole week. He'll pay for this. Back in the hall, Lord Vance turned to Kang. What do you need to restore the bow? Kang didn't hesitate. He listed everything with precision. Water buffalo horns, whale sinew, specific types of wood for the frame, finishing tools for the final coat. He recited the materials perfectly, proving he knew the bow's composition inside and out. A notification appeared perfectly, proving he knew the bow's composition inside and out. A notification appeared. Restoration method acquired. Sniper's gakgyeong. Materials list included. Warning: restoration will fail if success rate is below 70%. Failure will result in the bow's destruction. Kang stared at the notification. His mind drifted back to his childhood. He could see his father's hands guiding his own, showing him how to bend the wood, how to layer the sinew. His father's voice echoed in his memory. Do you love this craft so much, even though it fills your hands with calluses? Young Kang had smiled. I love doing it with you, Dad. His father had ruffled his hair. When you grow up, I'll teach you blacksmithing. But for now, you need to get used to handling raw materials with your hands. In the present, Kang whispered, tears welling in his eyes. Yes, Dad. He clenched his fists. The high synchronization rate of the capsule made everything feel so real. The texture of the materials, the weight in his hands. Just like back then. I can restore this bow perfectly. Just like you taught me. Lord Vance noticed the confidence in Kang's eyes. Let me help you. They worked together day and night. Kang was completely absorbed in shaping the wooden parts of the bow. The Lord watched him intently, his hands assisting where needed. After hours of labor, the Lord wiped his brow. Working all day is not easy. My strength is starting to fade. But then he smiled. Yet seeing the happiness on your face gives me the strength to continue. A full week passed. The Lord, exhausted, leaned against the workbench. Can I go back now, just for a bit? But Kang shook his head. Stay. I need your help installing the frame. The Lord looked at him, surprised. Kang's expression softened. You come here every day because you want to restore your father's memento with your own hands, don't you? The Lord's eyes glistened. Yes, this bow, it's all that remains of my father's memory. Then he tilted his head. But what about you? Why do you enjoy this work so much? Kang smiled. I also have many good memories associated with this craft. The Lord nodded. Restoring memories takes time and effort. 20 more days passed. Quick flashes showed them working on different parts of the bow, layering sinew, carving the frame, polishing the surface. Their hands moved in sync, guided by skill and devotion. Finally, the last day arrived. The restoration of the sniper's gakgong was complete. A notification flashed across Kang's vision. The bow had been reborn as an epic weapon, with stats and abilities far superior to its original form. Lord Vance stood before his father's statue, staring at the restored bow in his hands. Is he watching? Another mysterious foreigner has gifted me this bow once again. Kang's voice broke the silence. Try it. See if it feels the way you remember. The Lord knocked an arrow, drew the string back and released it. The arrow shot forward with immense force, cutting through the air like a blade. The Lord's eyes widened in amazement. It doesn't feel the same. Then he burst out laughing, joy flooding his face. It's become much greater than before. Quest complete. A system message appeared. Affinity with Lord Vance has reached maximum due to incredible success exceeding 100%. The Lord turned to Kang, his expression filled with gratitude. I can now perform my duties with a peaceful heart. Thank you. But still the promised reward feels too little for what you've done. Another notification appeared. Quest reward upgraded. Kang's eyes went wide. 2,000 gold pieces, plus free use of the blacksmith's workshop. His heart pounded. That's 2,000,001. More than enough to cover expenses for a long time. The Lord studied him carefully. Have you ever considered learning swordsmanship? Kang blinked, caught off guard. The Lord smiled. Before I became the Lord of this land, I was a swordsman. I practiced the first swordsmanship, a secret sword art of the Prime Kingdom, the technique that subdued endless monsters and brought stability to these lands. He stepped closer. You are undoubtedly a natural-born blacksmith, but I also saw in you the talent of a swordsman. Kang stayed quiet, listening. The Lord continued. Instructor Relson's recommendation along with my own observations confirmed it for me. Your exceptional physical condition, your quick reflexes, your deep knowledge of weapons. He extended his hand. Allow me to share a part of the essence of my swordsmanship with you. A new quest window appeared. Skill quest. Learn first swordsmanship training. The Lord's voice was confident. If you work as hard as you did in the workshop, you will succeed. Kang stared at the quest. An unexpected gift. A busy month passed. Kang crafted his own gakgong bow from scratch. He restored the rusty Madlord armor until it gleamed, and every day he sparred with Lord Vance. The training was brutal. His muscles screamed, his hands blistered, but he didn't stop. Finally, a notification appeared. First swordsmanship training complete. When it was time to leave, Kang stood before the Lord, fully prepared. He was wearing his restored Madlord armor and carrying his newly crafted gakgong bow. My next step is to get a suitable profession. The Lord smiled warmly. You're welcome here anytime. Kang nodded his thanks and decided to organize his belongings before setting off. He reviewed his equipment. The Madlord armor compensated for his low level thanks to its damage reflection skill. The new gakgong bow had an additional 60% accuracy boost. To cover his expenses, he'd also crafted some rare bows and listed them in the auction house. He pulled up the auction panel to check the selling price of Hyunja's second bow. Elsewhere, someone stared at the auction listing in disbelief. Black Korea's #1 player didn't craft a bow of this quality when he was at level 10. He leaned closer to the screen. How did Kang manage to craft this at level 1? With only low-quality materials? This person was Rune, the leader of the Golden Shield Guild. He leaned back in his chair, remembering the words of Smith, the world's #1 blacksmith. Everything in the game is decided by Ares. If the AI is impressed by a player's actions, it grants them a suitable profession, skill, or title. Rune's eyes narrowed. For the master of Hune's workshop to craft artifacts of this level, he must hold a legendary class title, just like Smith. Back with Kang, he pulled up the auction results and froze. The final price for his bow, 2,500 gold pieces. That's 2.5 million won. He checked his follower count, 3,200 followers. His message box was flooded. Guild invitations, crafting requests, so many he couldn't even check them all. Kang closed the notifications. It was time. He set his destination, the Holy Land of Blacksmiths, the Tower of Blacksmiths. He traveled through scenic landscapes, forests, and valleys, passing by in a blur, until finally the towering structure came into view. Up close it was magnificent, breathtaking. But when he reached the entrance he stopped. It was sealed. Magic chains wrapped around the doors, glowing faintly. How do I get in? A system message appeared. This is the Tower of the Swordmaker. To become a blacksmith you must break the seal with a sword forged in the magic workshop. Kang examined the seal more closely. Volcanic basalt rock. He looked around and spotted the entrance to the magic workshop nearby. He stepped inside. Time to begin the training. Inside the magic workshop, Kang read the rules carefully. Materials and tools provided in infinite quantities. Production time significantly shortened. But the swords made here can only be used for the test. He thought it over. The test is to break a stone seal with a sword, so it's focusing purely on my crafting ability, specifically crafting a sword capable of cutting stone. Elsewhere in the tower, Deng, the master of the Tower of Swordmakers, sat hunched over, muttering angrily, "Worthless fools. All of them." He slammed his fist on the table. Everyone who comes here only asks how to make money quickly. They're only interested in producing junk using skills and selling it. No respect for the real work in the workshop. His expression grew sad. The true path of the blacksmith is dead. Everyone now only seeks gold. Because of his despair, Deng had made the test easy. Anyone who wanted the title of blacksmith could pass a simple version. He knew their superficial efforts would never enable them to break the real seal. At best they might scratch it a little. To him the task was impossible. But Kang had a different plan. He decided to make a Damascus sword. A system message popped up. This type of sword is only made by professional blacksmiths. Recommendation: start with a simple iron dagger. Kang dismissed it. As long as I know the method and have unlimited materials, I can at least try. His father's words echoed in his mind. A sword can cut stone. I'll pass on to you a special forging method I developed myself. Kang felt confident. I can do this. He looked around the workshop. Perfect smelting facilities, top-tier equipment, unlimited supply of ores, shortened production time. His eyes lit up. This game is insane. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work with unparalleled enthusiasm and passion. Meanwhile, Deng was suddenly jolted awake by a violent vibration. The entire room shook. What the hell? He stumbled out of bed. The tower was trembling. Someone was hammering with immense force. Deng rushed down the stairs. When he reached the entrance, he froze. The sealed stone, the one he thought was unbreakable, had been split clean in half. Deng stood speechless as Kang calmly walked through the open entrance. In a moment of awe, Deng whispered, "The god of blacksmithing has finally appeared." Kang approached him and asked simply, "Did I pass the test?" Deng blinked, still in shock. "We usually measure ability by the mark the sword leaves on the stone." He gestured at the shattered seal. "But since you completely destroyed it, we couldn't measure anything." As Kang wondered if he'd have to retake the test, a glowing circle appeared on the ground beneath him. Deng stepped forward. "It's not a magic circle, it's a summoning circle." He held out his hammer, offering it to Kang. Kang took it, confused. A system message appeared. "You have obtained Deng's hammer." Another notification flashed. "New SS rank quest." Deng's expression grew serious. "There is a real trial you must now overcome." He placed a hand on Kang's shoulder. "My wishes for success go with you, god of blacksmithing." Before Kang could respond, everything went white. When his vision cleared, he was standing on the walls of a castle. What the hell? He looked around, disoriented. Is this a new test? Then he saw it. An army of orcs advancing toward the castle. Thousands of them. An SS rank quest appeared. Defeat the orc army. Kang's eyes went wide. What does this have to do with a blacksmithing quest? Soldiers on the wall noticed him and started cheering. Reinforcements from the master blacksmith have arrived. The quest condition became clear. Achieve a 70% contribution among 50 warriors. A gruff-looking man approached him. "I'm Hans, leader of the suppression squad, level 48 warrior." He clapped Kang on the back. "The orc invasion is getting fiercer. Much of our equipment is damaged. Use your skills to repair it quickly. Kang held up a hand. Wait, there's a misunderstanding. I haven't changed my class to blacksmith yet. I don't have any skills. Hands blinked. Then why are you holding that hammer? Kang looked down at Deng's hammer in his hand. I received it as part of a class change test. I was sent here for an additional test. Hans frowned. Do you have combat experience? Kang hesitated. I'm still a complete beginner in fighting. The soldiers around them groaned. Their faces fell. They were expecting support, but got a beginner who needed protection. Hans sighed. Stay in the watchtower for your own safety. We'll come back for you. Suddenly, a massive axe came hurtling through the air toward Hans. Kang's body moved on instinct. He rushed forward and parried the axe with surprising ease. Hans stared at him, shocked. Kang met his eyes. Can I join the fight? Even though I'm a beginner? This is the real test. Hans looked at him, confused. Kang felt confident. If I fight like I did against the goblins, everything will be fine. Hans finally nodded. Follow Ben's squad. He turned and charged into battle, taking the lead. The moment Kang stepped onto the battlefield, the pressure hit him like a wave. This was completely different from fighting goblins. The chaos, the screams, the smell of blood. His heart pounded in his chest. Despite the chaos, Kang felt confident. I will not lose. He engaged the orcs head-on, his movements sharp and precise. One orc fell, then another. A notification appeared. Level up, you are now level 2. His month of training hadn't been in vain. Ben, one of the soldiers, watched him in disbelief. How is a player without a class this strong? In the heat of battle, Ben found himself in imminent danger. An orc raised its blade ready to strike. Kang noticed immediately. He switched to his Korean bow, knocked an arrow, and fired. The arrow glowed as it cut through the battlefield, hitting the orc square in the chest. Ben stumbled back, gasping. Kang had saved his life, but another orc appeared behind Kang. He spun and fired again without hesitation. The arrow struck true. Multiple level-up notifications flashed across his screen. The soldier stared in shock. How did a single arrow take down something that massive? Hans shouted at Ben, snapping him out of his daze. The orcs are targeting him now. They're swarming him. Ben's face went pale with guilt. He got into trouble because of me. I lost focus. Kang was surrounded. He switched back to his daylight sword and activated the rampage skill. The blade moved in a blur, randomly attacking all enemies within a 10-meter radius. Orcs fell in waves. Another level-up notification. His contribution to the mission reached 19%. Hans felt joy surge through him. The old master had a good reason for sending him. With Kang by their side, they could achieve what they never could before. Hans looked at Kang with sincere admiration. You're brilliant. He turned to his soldiers, raising his sword high. Today with Kang we will annihilate the orc forces. Kang felt like a real part of the squad. A system message appeared. Your performance has boosted the soldiers' morale. He continued fighting. His contribution rose to 28%, but then he frowned. Why isn't my contribution percentage rising faster? I'm killing orcs faster than anyone else. Suddenly a hidden quest activated. A new unprecedented chapter begins. A formidable enemy approaches. The ground trembled. An orc warrior appeared. Massive, scarred, and wielding a jagged greatsword. Level 51. Hans's voice cut through the battlefield. Stop. Everyone stop. His face went pale. The one we could never defeat has finally appeared. Panic spread through the soldiers like wildfire. Hans gritted his teeth, realizing his mistake. We pushed too far. We're trapped. Despite the seriousness of the situation, the soldiers stood firm. We're ready to fight to the end. Ben shouted in agreement. We will never retreat. Hans gritted his teeth and raised his weapon. Attack. We can't continue like this forever. Kang noticed the soldiers had lost their composure. They were rushing recklessly. He tried to provide cover with his bow, firing arrow after arrow, but his eyes widened in shock. The arrows bounced off the orc warrior's armor. They can't penetrate its defenses. His bow had options that increased penetration and accuracy, but the orc warrior's hide was like tough armor. Attacking it with the bow alone was impossible. Despair spread through the soldiers. One of them shouted, "Should we retreat again?" Hans yelled back, "We can't retreat anymore." The orc warrior charged forward and swung its massive blade. In one brutal strike it cut off Hans's hand. Hans screamed and collapsed to the ground, blood pooling beneath him. Kang shouted, trying to alert him. "Captain Hans!" Fear rippled through the soldiers. The orcs roared in triumph. One soldier cried out in despair, "I can't break through their armor, no matter what I do." Another voice cracked, "We're all going to be wiped out." Kang stepped forward. "Listen to me. Continuing to fight this way will only lead to more losses." The soldiers turned to him, shocked. "Form a defensive line. Quickly retreat to the forest behind us. I'll catch up soon." The soldiers hesitated for only a moment, then obeyed. They prioritized transporting their injured leader to safety. Ben shouted, "Form a defensive line. Move." Ben looked at Kang. "This tactic will only buy us a little time." Kang met his eyes. "I only need 5 minutes." Ben nodded confidently. Then we'll hold out, no matter the cost. Kang turned and ran deep into the forest. Arrows can't penetrate strong armor. Is that really true? He pulled out Deng's hammer, an epic tool with the ability to duplicate consumables and shorten crafting time. His eyes lit up. My plan is possible. Meanwhile, the soldiers fought desperately in the forest, trying to repel the orc attack. Ben muttered to himself, gritting his teeth. I have to hold on. No matter what, he had to hold out for 5 minutes. That's all Kang had asked. All we have to do is hold on. But the orc army advanced relentlessly, crashing through the trees. Ben's grip tightened on his weapon. I will not give up. I will never retreat. Just as the orc warrior was about to strike Ben down, a mysterious projectile flew from the trees and hit the orc square in the chest. It dropped dead. Ben stared in confusion. What just happened? More projectiles flew from between the trees, hitting orcs with deadly precision. It was Kang. He was crafting and firing them from his hiding place. The orc warrior roared in anger at this unexpected tactic. Kang readied his weapons. The soldiers watched anxiously, their hopes pinned on him. Kang had crafted special arrows called Pyeonjan, rare-type arrows with significantly enhanced penetration power and speed. They could shatter rocks. He'd crafted them using a bamboo guide called a tonga, and replicated the short arrow edges using Deng's hammer. By combining these arrows with his Gakgong bow, a set effect activated, increasing his attack power and penetration ability. The orcs continued their fierce assault. The soldiers fought valiantly, creating an opening for Kang. He seized the opportunity and fired. The special arrow hit the orc warrior's helmet directly. The penetration power of this arrow is equivalent to a rifle shot. The arrow pierced the thick armor and killed the orc warrior with a single decisive blow. Level up, level up, level up. Kang shot up 3 levels instantly. A new notification appeared. Title earned, Orc Slayer. Attack power against orcs increased. Orcs now feel fear toward you. Terror spread through the remaining orcs. They turned and fled. The soldiers shouted, "Pursue them." Kang and the soldiers joined the chase. Kang leaped onto one of the fleeing orcs and fired his arrows with deadly precision, giving it no room to escape. The arrow lodged directly in its head. After a short while, they'd wiped out the remnants of the orc army. Mission complete. Suppress the invading orc army. Kang's final contribution, 92%. The system announced he'd completed the mission with an exceptional record. The victorious soldiers chanted, "Master Kang, Master Kang." Another notification appeared. Hidden title earned, Battlefield Commander. Charisma increased by 10 points. Kang approached the injured leader Hans, who was receiving aid. Hans looked up at him with emotion in his eyes. We'd always focused so much on defense. I never thought we'd achieve our long-held wish of defeating the orcs. His voice cracked. Thank you, deeply. The other soldiers joined in, expressing their gratitude. Kang smiled. Thank you too. He felt it. His additional test was finally over. Now to return to the blacksmith's tower. But then he frowned. How do I get back there? As Kang wondered how to return, the scene shifted to the central tower of blacksmiths. Deng stood there, his expression mournful. The blacksmith tower has fallen into a state of decline. All the glory and honor have gone to the knights. Only those blinded by gold coins come to our tower now. He clenched his fists. We need someone worthy of wielding the legendary sword that will fulfill the prophecy. Someone who carries the true spirit of a blacksmith. Many candidates had failed to fulfill the ancient prophecy of the god of blacksmiths, a prophecy that foretold the appearance of a successor who would restore their glory and prosperity. One of the tower masters, Coulson, interrupted with a scoff. Among all the tower masters is the great Deng, the only one qualified to face the sword's test. His tone dripped with sarcasm. The chosen one is just a hoax, isn't it? Why were we all summoned in the midst of our busy schedules just to grant testing rights to some strange foreign youth? Deng's eyes blazed. Did you not read the letter I sent? Kang earned this right on merit after passing the test we set. His voice rose. Despite not having changed his class yet, he has shown incredible skill in blacksmithing, led soldiers in battle, and annihilated orc warriors. The others gasped. Annihilation? Someone who hasn't even changed his class did that? Deng nodded firmly. This test was designed based on the prophecy. The successor of the god of blacksmiths must be stronger than anyone else. The final answer will be provided by the sword itself. He met their eyes. You will soon see the truth. At that moment, a guard's voice echoed through the hall. Lord Kang has arrived. Deng straightened. Bring him in. The massive doors creaked open. Kang stepped into the majestic hall, his footsteps echoing. Deng walked forward, arms spread wide. You have passed the test, and earned the right to enter the sacred sanctum of the blacksmiths. He gestured toward a pedestal at the far end of the hall. You are now eligible to challenge the sword of prophecy left by the god of blacksmiths. Deng's tone grew serious. Everything will be decided the moment you hold the sword, after which you will receive a suitable reward. A suitable reward. Kang's mind raced. I completed an additional SS rank mission during my class change test. Could the reward be a legendary class? Coulson stepped forward with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Congratulations on standing in this glorious place. Your performance was impressive. The quick thinking you showed at that critical moment was remarkable. But then his smile turned condescending. However, the arrow you made was just a replica of a weapon called Solinarian. It was all just a matter of luck. He crossed his arms. Without that epic bow you possessed, you would have never been able to pass the test. He challenged Kang with a sly grin. Draw the sword. Let's see if luck will be on your side again. Kang looked around at the assembled masters of the Blacksmith Tower, high-class NPCs. Each of them had built the legends of Ares. Coulson, the master of the Bow Blacksmith Tower, had a formidable level of 365. Everyone in the hall possessed titles and levels that inspired awe as blacksmiths. They were certainly impressive, but Kang didn't feel his skills were inferior to theirs. If we competed on pure skill alone, without relying on titles, I could win. As Kang approached the legendary sword, it suddenly glowed with immense power. A wave of energy exploded outward, shocking Deng, Coulson, and everyone present. The sword released a blinding flash of light that engulfed the entire hall. What's happening? Kang shielded his eyes as the bright energy surrounded him. When the light finally faded, Kang found himself standing in the same spot, but he looked around in confusion. Where's the sword? It had completely disappeared. Deng's eyes widened in realization. This is how the prophecy is fulfilled. He burst into loud laughter. We'd been inventing rituals and procedures all this time. The true successor didn't even need to touch the sword to prove his worth. Coulson cursed under his breath, his face twisted with anger. He couldn't accept what was happening. A system message appeared. Congratulations. The first god class in the world of Ares has appeared. Coulson's fury flared. How could this novice receive such an honor? Another message flashed. You have advanced to the god of blacksmithing class. Kang and Deng stood frozen in shock. This wasn't just a god class. It was the first of its kind in the entire game. A unique SS rank title appeared. God of Blacksmithing. Exceptional abilities granted, unrestricted by material level when crafting. Experience automatically increases depending on the type of item made. And most importantly, the prophecy's words echoed in Kang's mind. As a blacksmith, you will become stronger than anyone else. A new class quest appeared. Test of the Sword. It would begin when he reached level 100. The other tower masters whispered among themselves. The sword has chosen the foreigner. The prophecy of the successor to the god of blacksmiths has been fulfilled. But Coulson shouted, his voice cutting through the murmurs. I can never accept this. He stepped forward, his face red with fury. We, as masters of the tower, have waited a long time for the great successor who will receive the revelation of the god of blacksmiths. We cannot conclude that the sword's choice is the will of the god himself. Deng shouted back, Stop, the prophecy is absolute. Coulson glared at him. What is happening is a farce. The prophecy also says the successor must have the recognition of all the tower masters. He turned to Kang, his eyes blazing. As the master of the Bow Blacksmithing Tower, I officially challenge you to a blacksmith's duel. Coulson laid out his conditions clearly. If you defeat me in this duel, I will recognize you as the successor. But if I win, you must renounce the position the Sword of Prophecy has chosen for you. Deng's face turned pale with anger. You've lost your senses. Restrain him immediately. But Coulson ignored him, looking disdainfully at his colleagues. He turned back to Kang with a sarcastic smile. You can run away if you want, in which case I'll grant you the position of Deputy Tower Master, as long as you submissively receive my training. He laughed insolently. Kang's voice was calm and confident. I accept your challenge. At that moment, a secret skill of blacksmiths manifested. They speak through their craft. A new ability appeared. Custom God Crafting unlocked. An S-rank quest notification flashed. Duel of the Blacksmiths. Objective. Win the duel against Coulson. Coulson's grin widened. Our way of dueling is different from knights. It's a clash between two works forged with the souls of their creators in the foundry. He gestured toward the hall. The rule is simple. The two swords we make will collide. Whichever one breaks first, its owner loses. The best blacksmith workshop has been set up inside the hall. Since you now have blacksmithing skills, one day should be enough for you to make your weapon. He turned to leave, then glanced back over his shoulder with a sarcastic smirk. If you're truly the god of blacksmithing, I'll see you tomorrow. After Coulson left, Deng turned to Kang, his expression serious. You accepted that duel too recklessly. Coulson is one of the most skilled masters of the tower. Kang nodded. If I were still in my previous profession, this would have been a losing battle for sure. In the world of Ares, amazing skills and enhancements were granted based on level and titles. Each of the tower masters possessed unique special abilities. But Kang realized something. When his class changed to a god class, those differences disappeared. Now, the only real difference came from pure skill, thanks to the new ability he'd acquired. Custom God Crafting. An active god rank skill that allowed him to create a fully customized artifact and grant it any effect he desired. The crafting difficulty increased as the desired effect's grade rose, but the possibilities were endless. Meanwhile, in his workshop, Coulson recalled his past. He'd been a blacksmith who made swords, the rightful heir to the sword crafting trade his family had passed down through generations. But then someone much more skilled than him appeared. Instead of becoming a sword maker, he was forced to become the master of the bow tower. It was bitter, but he'd chosen to accept it to serve the great Deng. But he could never tolerate Deng bringing a stranger out of nowhere and placing him above him. Coulson poured all his anger and resentment into the hammer as he worked. The foundry erupted in a massive explosion of fire. In Kang's workshop, Deng watched him work on his sword. The process of granting abilities and effects to artifacts follows a basic law of profit and loss. To gain an advantage in this duel, he must prioritize durability and maximize the weapon breaker attribute. That means he needs to craft the sword with the highest possible grade. But Deng frowned in confusion. The durability and attributes of Kang's sword seemed to be only of rare grade. Kang finished making his sword. It glowed with a bright light. Deng stared at it, wondering in amazement. What are the true thoughts and abilities of the god of blacksmithing? The next day, everyone gathered to watch the duel. Coulson smiled sarcastically when he saw Kang approach. You managed to make something. At least you didn't run away. Show me. Do you truly deserve to be called the successor of the gods? Coulson presented his sword first, holding it high. Coulson's Dark Knight, unique grade. The stats appeared for all to see. Durability, 12,000. Attack power, 664. Special abilities, increases durability by 35%. Latent weapon breaker skill. Deng and the other tower masters murmured in admiration. To create such a unique and flawless sword overnight was exceptional skill. Coulson boasted, his chest puffed with pride. This sword is a magnificent masterpiece, imbued with my family's traditions and secret techniques. He pointed at Kang. Now show me yours. Kang revealed his sword. Coulson and Deng's eyes widened in shock. Wyland's first custom-made sword. Rare grade. Durability 1000. Attack power 177. One of the tower masters looked on with contempt. Ridiculous. Coulson might have been right after all. Coulson smiled triumphantly. Deng made a grave mistake this time. He's wasting his time with a scoundrel in his pathetic game. It ends here. Coulson shouted and rushed toward Kang. Their swords clashed. The sounds of clashing metal echoed through the hall. Then, suddenly a loud shattering sound rang out. Deng and the onlookers watched in complete shock. Coulson's unique sword, Dark Knight, had shattered into pieces and scattered across the floor. Coulson stood speechless, staring at the broken fragments. How did this happen? Kang's voice was calm. A sword's value is not determined by its grade alone. The details of Kang's sword appeared again, revealing its special active ability. A sword that cuts swords. 65% chance to cut the opponent's weapon. Unique unrepairable sword designed to be destroyed when its durability is depleted. At that moment, Deng remembered his father's words. The god of blacksmithing will one day appear in this land. Someone who will shatter our traditional concepts and guide us with new teachings. Everyone will have the chance to meet him. Deng could see young Coulson eagerly asking, if I become a great blacksmith, can I receive his teachings too? The scene shifted to the recent past. Back in the workshop, Kang had explained to Deng, merely breaking swords won't convince the tower masters. That's why I decided to make a sword that cuts swords. Deng had wondered at the time if it was really possible. It's never been an easy task. Kang had replied with confidence. Creating an artifact with the desired properties always comes down to the blacksmith's skill and sweat. Now, Deng realized the truth. It was a bold choice, one that completely defied common sense. But backed by the knowledge and ability to turn such a vision into reality, Deng concluded that Kang possessed all these qualities, and more. The stunned Coulson looked down at his shattered sword and whispered the name God of Blacksmithing. He wondered to himself if he too could one day make such a sword. Kang looked at him with a calm smile and told him that for him the word impossible simply does not exist. Coulson fell to his knees, admitting his defeat. Kang declared to him, "You now stand before the god of blacksmithing." And just like that, a window appeared, announcing that the duel of the blacksmith's quest had been successfully completed. As the tower stood tall in the background, the tower masters approached Kang and asked him to accept his reward. They presented him with a box containing 500 gold pieces, as well as a scroll, a recipe for crafting a legendary bow, one of the 10 treasures of the blacksmith's tower. Coulson admitted that this was a bow recipe he himself could never complete, and that giving it to someone on their way to becoming a powerful being was its proper use. Deng told Kang that now that the god of blacksmithing had finally appeared, they would strive anew. He asked him to aim for the pinnacle of power and encouraged him to explore a wider world, declaring, "The growth of the god begins now." The scene shifted to the real world, where Kang was celebrating with his friend Jihoon. Jihoon expressed his happiness and surprise that he was drinking beer on Kang's tab. He enthusiastically congratulated him on obtaining a god rank class, calling it absolutely insane. Jihoon told him that he'd recommended the game because it was a shame to waste his talent, but he never imagined Kang would be this talented at playing. He added that after all the suffering Kang went through in that blacksmith's workshop, he was finally seeing the light. Jihoon asked what difference the god class actually makes, And Kang replied that he didn't think there was anything drastically different at the moment. But more importantly, he had to pay his father's hospital bill tomorrow. And in the meantime, another 10 million won had been added to the treatment costs. Jaehon told him that he'd inquired about his father's new medicine, but since it wasn't covered by insurance, the cost was at least 20 million won. And let's not forget the costs for Kang's own burn treatments. Jaehon concluded that just having the class wouldn't be enough to make money. There's a physical limit to the number of artifacts he can craft and sell, right? He explained that essentially Kang needed to level up and gain fame. The growth of the god begins now, he said. He advised him to build a relationship with the most famous person in Ares. That way he could get much larger rewards and rare items, even from quests of the same grade, and then use that as a basis to craft top-tier artifacts again. Kang thought about the idea of building a relationship with the most famous person in the game. Jaehon excitedly told him he had an idea and asked him to wait a bit. He cheerfully announced that his big brother would achieve the best accomplishments and help him advance. Kang scoffed at him and just asked him to try not to get fired from his job. Jaehon showed his friend news from the Ares user community where everyone was talking about how the player Lord, who's always ranked 21st, had finally reached a legendary class. But Jaehon clarified that this wasn't the really amazing part. The amazing thing? Lord had managed to defeat Sword King Barad, something no one had ever done before. Literally no one had even managed to hit him. Players were wondering, how the hell did Lord manage to achieve this? Meanwhile, Kang was doing the math in his head, and honestly, the numbers weren't looking good. His father's hospital bills were hitting 30 million won per month, and the overdue payments were due today. Even if he combined everything, the quest rewards, the auction profits, all of it, it still wouldn't be enough. And there was no way, absolutely no way he could let his father's treatment stop. Just then, his phone buzzed. Kang glanced at the notification and his eyes went wide. One of his swords had just sold for 53,310 gold pieces. And the buyer? Lord. Without wasting a single second, Kang bolted to the hospital reception and told them he wanted to pay all the outstanding medical bills. Right now, today. In that moment, Kang made a firm decision. He could never ever stop playing Ares. Back in the game, a message popped up from Lord and it was warm, almost emotional. Lord thanked him profusely, explaining that thanks to Kang's sword he'd finally fulfilled his wish of passing Barad's test. And get this. Lord even added that if someone truly understood the value of the sword Kang made, they'd realize that 50 million won was actually a bargain. Lord's message continued, describing how Kang's sword had managed to cut the Sword King's own blade and create an opening. Yeah, you read that right, it clearly surprised even the king himself. Then Lord dropped the bombshell. He told Kang that the king of the Goyard Kingdom, the Sword King Barad himself, was waiting for him. Kang read the message in confusion. The king wants him to make a sword? Lord urged him to go meet Barad immediately. And suddenly, it all clicked for Kang. This opportunity could solve everything. His father's hospital bills, the new medicine, all of it. He decided right then and there that he had to meet Barad. And hey, he could also find his lost workshop on the way. 2 birds, 1 stone. Elsewhere, a stylish-looking man appeared. He visited an old blacksmith workshop, a weird place to be in this modern age, right? And casually mentioned that only 1 month remained on their promise. Cryptic much? Back to Kang. He was on the phone with his friend Jaehon, who immediately told him in shock, "You can't meet Barad." Jaehon scoffed at the whole idea. Sure, getting a god-ranked class is great and all, but how the hell is a level 10 beginner supposed to meet a king? He explained that to meet a high-level NPC, the player's level and fame must be equally high. And to meet Barad, you'd need to be at least level 200. But Jaehon wasn't all doom and gloom. He reassured Kang that it wasn't impossible, and told him about the Goyard Martial Arts Tournament. This tournament is held every year in the Goyard Kingdom with level restrictions, somewhere between 50 and 60. And here's the kicker. King Barad is always on the lookout for talented individuals with potential for growth, which is exactly why he holds this tournament for outsiders every year. Jaehon confirmed that the tournament was scheduled to be held soon, and the winner, they receive the prize money directly from Barad himself. Jaehon concluded by saying this is the only way if Kang wants to meet Barad immediately. So Kang found himself traveling in a carriage towards his next destination. Based on Deng's advice, he was heading to the castle region. Deng had told him that this place sits right on the border of the Prime and Goyard kingdoms, where a daily war with the undead rages on, and they'd need his abilities more than anyone else. The castle region is basically a regional battle zone where players fend off waves of undead monsters day after day. According to Deng, this place is the fastest for leveling up, period. Kang was determined. No matter what, he would accomplish the upcoming mission. Upon arriving in the castle region, Kang was greeted by Centurion Lander, who asked if he was part of the reinforcements from the capital. The commander told him his timing was perfect. They were in dire need of everyone they could get right now, like desperately. The commander explained that the number of invading undead was constantly increasing, and honestly, things weren't looking good. Kang asked if he knew the reason, and the commander replied, "Oh, I know the reason, all right." He explained that when the Holy Rammus bell used to ring in the castle region, the invading undead would be weakened, making them easier to exterminate. Until now, the sound of the bell had kept those distant undead from even approaching. But a short while ago, the bell was shattered to pieces. Just like that. The commander added that they were caught completely by surprise and were scrambling to fortify their defenses, but the enemy was starting to sense this and was slowly, menacingly approaching. Kang asked Commander Lander if the bell couldn't be repaired, and suddenly Lander realized who Kang actually was. He eagerly asked if he came on behalf of Master Deng. Kang confirmed, yep, he was indeed sent by Deng, the master of the Tower of Swordmakers. Lander practically smacked himself on the forehead, scolding Kang for not telling him sooner. They'd been waiting for him. He quickly grabbed Kang and took him to see the captain. Kang met the captain of the castle knights, a guy named Cao, who asked if the great Deng himself had sent him. Lander confirmed this, explaining that Kang wished to see the Rammus bell in person. Captain Cao let out a heavy sigh and informed them that Deng had already judged the bell as unrepairable. He explained that the Lord had already made several secret attempts to restore it, bringing in expert after expert, but every single one said the same damn thing. The shattered Rammus bell, marked as an unrepairable artifact. Done, finished. He added that there was still one person in the castle looking for a way to fix it, but it was all in vain. Lander chimed in, recalling that person was level 290. And yet, it still proved impossible. Captain Cao turned to Kang and asked about his ability. He requested information on his level. Kang replied that he was currently level 13. Level 13. Lander's jaw practically hit the floor. The captain looked at Kang with a mixture of pity and concern. He told him that he didn't wish to blame someone who came to help them, but at his level, it would be wise to find a place where he could actually contribute. The captain explained that the castle region was now on the brink of annihilation, and when the main army of the undead began to advance and that would be their doomsday. The captain asserted that it was his duty to protect the Lord and the people to the very end, and he would do his duty no matter what. At that very moment, a soldier burst through the door, shouting that the undead were attacking the eastern wall. They were ghouls, and a massive swarm of them was rushing towards them. Oh, and get this, the ghouls were level 41. The captain immediately ordered his men that the situation was critical. They had to hold the gates at all costs, no exceptions. He then ordered Lander to follow him and told Kang that everything they discussed must remain a secret. Kang thought to himself that if this was anything like the Orc War, he could handle it. And just like that, a new regional war quest popped up, requiring him to repel the invading ghouls and defend the gates. Here we go again. Hordes of ghouls rushed towards the walls like a tsunami of rotting flesh. The soldiers fought fiercely, and Lander explained while hacking away that undead monsters were hard to kill without weapons imbued with holy power, so they had to strike the same spot repeatedly, over and over. Exhausting, really. But then Lander watched in complete amazement as Kang felled a ghoul with a single arrow to the head, one shot, despite not possessing any holy power whatsoever. How the hell? Kang used the flying arrow skill and the arrow pierced through rows of ghouls with a single powerful strike. It shot forth with terrifying force, piercing through the bodies of the ghouls one after another, like some kind of deadly game of connect the dots. The soldiers could only stare in disbelief. The soldiers cheered enthusiastically, while Lander declared he would take them all down, no matter how many there were. Kang thought to himself that this wasn't as bad as he thought. If things continued like this, they'd succeed in completing the mission. Easy, right? Wrong. A system message announced the start of a new story. Suddenly, a new threat appeared, and a quest requiring the defeat of a giant siege ghoul popped up. The soldiers screamed in absolute terror at the appearance of the giant ghoul. They realized they had to call the captain immediately. But another soldier frantically explained that Captain Cal was busy defending the gate and had no extra forces to offer. They were on their own. As the danger approached, Lander feared that the wall would fall. Kang announced that he would draw the monster's attention for a moment and jumped off the wall. Just like that, the soldiers screamed in alarm, warning him that it was too dangerous to go alone. But Kang was already gone. Down below, Kang confronted the giant ghoul, skillfully dodging its attacks and delivering counterblows. He succeeded in drawing the massive beast's attention, and Kang thought that once he took it down, things would go smoothly. He continued to dodge the ghoul's brutal attacks, and decided he had to first pull it as far away from the wall as possible. He wondered if he'd successfully drawn its full attention. But then the ghoul suddenly attacked him with overwhelming force. Kang was genuinely surprised by the beast's immense speed. This thing was fast. To create some distance for himself, he switched his weapon to his bow and fired a flying arrow while sliding on the ground. The arrow hit the ghoul's head directly. Perfect shot. But then, the arrow just bounced off without causing any damage at all, not even a scratch. Kang was shocked. What the hell? The ghoul retaliated with a fierce attack and Kang's health points dropped below 10%. A system message coldly warned him that when his health points reached 0%, he would be forcibly logged out. Kang screamed, refusing to let it end this way. But he fell to the ground, defeated. Kang got to his knees wondering about the absurdity of this forced logout concept. He realized that if he failed to complete this event, he wouldn't be able to participate in the Goyard martial arts tournament. And if that happened, his father's hospital bills, his own treatment, restoring his path as a blacksmith, all of it would become impossible. He refused to go back to being a hopeless person. This game was his only chance, his only shot at changing his reality. And he was about to lose it all. With determination burning in his eyes, Kang declared he couldn't give up here. No matter what, he fired another arrow that hit the giant ghoul, which screamed in pain. But the monster retaliated with a fierce sonic attack, and Kang's health points dropped below 3%. Seriously, 3%. Despite his severe injuries, Kang screamed that he would never give up and prepared to fire another arrow, asserting that it wasn't over yet. But then he discovered something horrifying. His bowstring had snapped. Just his luck. The ghoul seized the opportunity and launched a devastating attack, bringing Kang's health points down to just one measly point. As he was on the verge of defeat, Kang refused to give up this way. He couldn't, he wouldn't. And then, because of his absolute persistence, a system message appeared, announcing that a special condition had been met. The message explained that with health points below 5%, his strong desire and will had met the qualifications of the god of blacksmithing. And just like that, he was able to acquire a new skill. Kang acquired the emergency god crafting skill, a skill where he had to forge a weapon within 20 seconds. 20 seconds. And this weapon could only be used for 30 seconds. Talk about pressure. But Kang realized this was his chance, his only chance. The emergency god crafting process began with a 19-second countdown ticking away. Kang knew this was his last shot to complete this mission. He frantically selected the materials and began crafting the weapon with incredible speed. The countdown continued. 118, 17, 16. As the timer hit 0, Kang finished making a brand new sword and leaped towards the monster again. He let out a war cry and charged towards the giant ghoul, using the Scythe of Death sword skill. For a moment the giant ghoul froze in place as if time had stopped around it, and Kang pierced it with his new sword in a single finishing blow. One strike. That's all it took. The giant ghoul fell, defeated. The exhausted Kang looked at the scene and smiled in victory, realizing he'd actually succeeded. A system message announced he had eliminated the giant ghoul and gained immense experience, raising his level to 38 point. Kang thought with relief that this level was more than sufficient to participate in the tournament. Mission accomplished. Then he collapsed from exhaustion as Lander and the soldiers rushed towards him, calling his name. Kang later woke up to find himself in a bed, fully bandaged like a mummy. He sat up, wondering how much time had passed, and asked about the ghoul's fate. When he opened his eyes properly, he found himself surrounded by soldiers who were chanting his name and calling him a true hero. One of the soldiers approached and thanked him, explaining that it was thanks to him they were able to survive that day. Again, Captain Cal also came over and thanked him, asking how he did it. How the hell did a level 13 player pull that off? Kang replied that he wasn't sure how to explain it, thinking to himself that any explanation he gave would seem completely unbelievable. The captain insisted he not be so modest, asserting that he was the one who led today's battle. Kang thought about his strategy. He'd realized that ghouls, like ghosts, were weak to holy power. This reminded him of the Sword of the Four Symbols, a legendary sword known for its ability to exorcise evil spirits and ward off disasters. And thanks to what his father had taught him about restoration that day, all those years ago, he was able to bring this sword back to life, even if just for 30 seconds. Kang felt grateful that his plan had worked out exactly as he imagined. Captain Cal insisted on rewarding him and handed him a bag containing 2,000 gold pieces. Kang's eyes lit up. That was equivalent to 2 million won. Captain Cal admitted that he'd misjudged Kang, thinking he was like the rest of the outsiders who came through. The captain bowed, asking him to accept his apology. Kang reassured him that it was okay and thanked him for acknowledging him. And at that moment their affinity reached its maximum. Perfect. Then Captain Kalog made a formal request to Kang. Repair the Rama spell. The captain explained that he'd felt a holy power in the sword Kang used earlier, and with that ability he believed Kang could do it. Kang apologized, saying he appreciated his words, but he had to head to the kingdom of Goyard. Now, the tournament was waiting after all. Captain Cal smiled, admitting he'd forgotten an important detail. Kang was a blacksmith. He told him that the Lord possessed a legendary metal, and that if he repaired the bell he might give it to him. Kang was immediately surprised by the mention of legendary metal and became very interested. Captain Cal took him to see the bell. He revealed a pile of golden fragments, explaining that this was the Rama's bell. Kang was shocked. The bell wasn't just broken, it was completely shattered into tiny pieces. The captain asked him if he could really remake it, if he truly believed it was possible. Kang admitted that it was worse than he expected. Way worse. But he believed there had to be a way. There was always a way. At that moment a woman approached them and coldly declared that the bell could not be repaired. She added that even at her level of 290, she couldn't do it. so how could he possibly claim to be able to? She accused him of being a fraud. Earlier, this same woman, Belle, or team leader, had announced she was leaving her guild. The master of the Golden Shield Guild, Rune, asked her in shock why she was suddenly resigning. Didn't she care about everything she'd built so far? She replied that she was tired now. Just tired. Rune tried to persuade her to stay, saying that if she could bring in the blacksmith Kang this time, things would get better. But she angrily retorted that this was exactly the problem. How could they offer 500 million won a year to some random player? Rune argued that the blacksmith Kang had sold his first crafted sword for 50 million won, and that if they could recruit him, the guild would rise quickly. Belle reminded Rune about their track record. The blacksmith they brought in before was just an external contractor. The one who came after took the deposit and ran. Another blacksmith won the lottery and disappeared. She continued to list the failures, one after another. Belle asked him to stop and explained how difficult it was to clean up all this mess. She insisted he not try to stop her from leaving. Rune reluctantly agreed to her decision, but assured her that he would always keep a place for her if she decided to return. The scene shifted to the castle region. Belle arrived to find the village in ruins and wondered in shock how a village like this could just disappear. She thought that this was the place that had shown her that the people here weren't just non-player characters. They were real people, just like her. Belle believed that if they could just fix the Rama spell, perhaps they could stop all this destruction. She decided she needed to go check the bell again. When she reached the bell room, she was surprised to find Kang there, and immediately she accused him of being a fraud. Kang replied in confusion, asking who she was to say that. She answered that she was a blacksmith of a much higher rank than him. Way higher. Captain Cal quickly intervened and asked everyone not to fight. He introduced Belle as the advanced blacksmith he'd mentioned earlier, and introduced Kang as the person who helped eliminate the ghouls. The captain cheerfully added that on top of that, Kang said he would fix the bell. Belle wondered to herself sarcastically, how could a level 38 player help eliminate ghouls, and now claim to fix the bell? It didn't make sense. Belle accused Kang of trying to take advantage of the deteriorating situation in the castle region. Just another opportunist. Kang coolly asked her what she'd been talking about since she arrived. Seriously, what was her problem? Kang ignored her and began to examine the bell fragments, wondering if they had changed in some way. He had work to do. A system window appeared confirming that the Rama's bell was imbued with holy power, was completely destroyed, and repair was impossible. Kang concluded that there was no chance of repair through traditional methods, so naturally he did something completely untraditional. He took a hammer and struck one of the fragments with force. Belle screamed in terror, telling him to stop. What the hell was he doing? Kang spoke calmly and told her that it was possible. He explained that restoration was possible. Belle asked him angrily if he didn't know the meaning of unrepairable artifact. Did those words mean nothing to him? At that moment, a soldier rushed into the room, shouting for the captain. He told them that the undead were pouring in massive numbers. Everyone was shocked. A system window appeared, and Kang initially thought it was a new quest, but then he realized it was an update notification. The notification announced that the castle region update had begun, and that after the update was complete, the updated region would be created. They realized what this meant. The region was turning into a land of the undead, permanently. Belle believed this was the end. Game over. But Kang corrected her, saying that if they made the bell, they could stop it. Belle described his words as impossible, but Kang insisted it was possible. He had to believe it was. Then Kang turned to Belle and asked her directly about the castle region. Wasn't she the one who wanted to protect it? Belle admitted that Kang was right, but she wondered how they could possibly do it. Kang asked her to follow him, adding the shards of the Rama spell to his inventory. He enthusiastically declared that they would protect this place together. Captain Cal told Kang that he was counting on him to repair the bell and that he would hold the undead off for as long as possible. Kang told him to leave it to him. The captain raised his sword and shouted to his men not to lose hope. They would fight until the end. He urged them to hold on a little longer, insisting that they must protect the castle. They had to. In the blacksmith's workshop, Belle asked Kang what he was going to do. Kang explained that when he shattered the shard earlier, the holy power didn't disappear, which meant the power was within the material itself. He planned to melt it down and forge a new bell, believing that if the bell was complete, the holy power would be even stronger. Belle commented that she'd never seen a skill like this before. Kang replied that a skill wasn't always needed to fix something. Sometimes you just needed good old-fashioned craftsmanship. The smelting process began, and Belle wondered in amazement if he intended to do this by hand. In this day and age? Seriously? Kang asked her why she wasn't helping, explaining that he couldn't do it alone. He needed her. Meanwhile, in the game developers' offices, a developer watched the countdown for the castle region update. Less than an hour remaining. He declared in despair that they were in trouble. This update was about to go to waste. All that work, just gone. A colleague asked him why he was grumbling on update day, and Kim Tae-suk told him to look at the screen. The colleague wondered if it was about that blacksmith player. He asserted that a player couldn't fix it. It was impossible. But their female colleague clarified that Belle was no ordinary player. She was level 290 after all. The fateful day of the castle region update arrived, and the battle intensified. Cal shouted orders to stop the undead and prevent them from entering. They fought with all their might, panting from exhaustion. The soldiers suffered brutal attacks, and one fell to a huge monster. But Cal intervened and killed the beast, saving his man. Captain Cal rushed to check on him and shouted to his men to hold on a little longer. He urged them to protect the castle, the place where they were born and raised, where they'd spent their entire lives. This was their home. In the midst of the fight, Captain Cal's sword began to crack. He wondered in despair why this was happening. Now, of all times, as his sword was about to shatter completely, a monster lunged at him. The captain shouted in defiance, cursing the situation. He believed that everything would end like this. This was it. Suddenly, a powerful ringing sound echoed across the battlefield. The undead clutched their heads and screamed in pain. They burst into flames and fell one by one as the mysterious sound of the bell continued to spread. The bell's echo resonated throughout the entire region, and the defending forces looked joyfully towards the source of the sound. Captain Cal exclaimed happily that the Ramus bell had been repaired. They'd actually done it. In the developer offices, one of the developers spit out his drink in shock, unable to believe what he was seeing on the screen. In the blacksmith's workshop, Kang was putting the final touches on the bell. The developers wondered if they'd really succeeded. The developer asked his team in disbelief if he'd lost his mind. Was this really happening? Back in the workshop, Kang and Belle looked at the hammer they'd used for the work. Belle asked how they'd actually managed to achieve it. How was this even possible? In the office, a developer shouted, asking what was happening. Has the update really failed? Kim Tae-suk explained that Kang, that man, hadn't slept for a single moment since the update countdown began. A full week ago. It was revealed that 5 days ago Kang had gone straight to the blacksmith's workshop in the castle region, gathered the city's entire workforce, and began repairing the Ramus bell. He'd explained that they had to melt everything down to its basic materials, or more accurately, extract the divine power from them. Every last bit of it. While Kang was drawing the blueprints, he left Belle in charge of managing the workers and supplying the battlefield. Smart move. After that, Kang began the custom god crafting process. He planned to use his skill to maximize the bell's power against the undead and evil forces, and to add a skill that could inflict direct damage, not just defense, offense too. He shouted at the workers to increase the furnace heat. With the shared will to protect the castle region, everyone worked towards a single goal. Kang yelled at them to focus and not leave any impurities, not even one. While the workers were determined to do whatever it took to protect their homeland, they believed this dedication would imbue the bell with even greater divine power. And they were right. The scene showed the passing of days from the 4th day before the end to the 3rd to the 2nd and finally to the last day, where Belle continued to watch. Exhausted, Belle suddenly woke up, wondering when she'd fallen asleep. She saw the completed bell in awe, disbelieving that Kang had worked on it for days without a single break, not even one nap. A system window appeared before her, announcing that her apprentice title was glowing. She had witnessed a crafting process performed by a master craftsman blacksmith, which increased her advanced blacksmithing mastery efficiency by 22%. She wondered in shock if this young man was truly a master craftsman. Kang told her that the noise must have been very loud, but she'd slept soundly. Belle protested, saying she wasn't unconscious for that long. Was she? Kang reassured her that they were in the final stages and asked her to wait just a bit longer. Belle suddenly asked him if he was Kang the blacksmith, the one everyone was talking about. Kang confirmed his identity. Then he placed his hand on the newly completed bell, which glowed with immense power and was imprinted with his special symbol, his mark. Belle looked at the completed bell with admiration, saying that calling it beautiful didn't do it justice. It was a magnificent masterpiece. A system window appeared, explaining that this was Kang's second custom creation in progress, unique with infinite durability. It was a reconstructed artifact that had been unrepairable. Belle wondered if this was the reason for its power. She admitted she'd never seen anyone succeed at something like this before. Suddenly, Belle grabbed Kang's hands tightly and eagerly asked him to be with her from now on. Kang asked her in confusion what she meant. Was this a love confession? Belle denied it in embarrassment. No, that's not what she meant. The scene returned to the decisive day of the battle, where Kang struck the newly completed bell. Waves of holy energy emanated from it, annihilating the hordes of undead who screamed in agony as they burned. The soldiers gasped as they watched the horrific yet beautiful scene unfold before their eyes. A system message confirmed that Kang had created a new bell and eradicated the undead, and that he could now prevent the update and create a new story. Kang shouted triumphantly that they did it. Thank God he wasn't too late. But then he immediately collapsed, overcome by a state of extreme exhaustion that left him completely stunned. Belle rushed to him, anxiously asking if he was okay. A system message announced the completion of the Repair the Ramus Bell quest. Another message indicated that the rewards had been changed. Changed how? Meanwhile, the news spread quickly throughout the Ares player community. Someone asked if others knew the blacksmith Kang and posted a topic titled "The Reason the Castle Region Update Failed," complete with pictures of the tower before and after the bell's repair. Players recognized the name Kang from his first custom sword and were absolutely stunned that he'd repaired the Ramus bell. As a result, huge numbers of players started following Kang's workshop. His follower count was skyrocketing. Kang woke up in his bed to the sound of continuous notifications, wondering about all the noise. What the hell was going on? He saw that his workshop's follower count had jumped to 101,655. He was amazed, wondering how this was even possible. Kang smiled, realizing it was a good thing he'd engraved his name Kang on the bell. Now everyone who visited the castle region would see it. Free advertising. Someone knocked on the door and asked for permission to enter. Captain Cal entered enthusiastically, announcing that their region's savior had awakened. He told Kang that he'd come with the Lord's approval to give him his reward for making the bell 330,000 gold pieces. Kang was stunned by the amount, that was equivalent to 330 million won. The captain added that the savior deserved a reward of this caliber and presented him with a box, a gift from the Lord himself. Kang opened it to find the legendary metal orichalcum. His eyes went wide. Captain Cal insisted that they were the ones who should be thanking him, explaining that unlike other outsiders, Kang didn't abandon their region, he protected them. The captain expressed his sincere gratitude, and you could feel it in his voice. Kang felt the captain's sincerity, and thought that he'd only done what had to be done. He realized that the despair of people in Ares was no different from their despair in reality. Pain was pain, whether in a game or the real world. Kang then took his leave of the captain, explaining that he needed to return to where he used to live for a while. The captain immediately agreed, understanding completely. Kang decided it was time to reclaim his workshop and logged out of the game. The captain and his colleague looked at the spot where Kang had disappeared, commenting that outsiders were a strange group. The next day in Gyeongju, Kang met with the real estate investor Hyuksu. Hyuksu looked at his phone, and there it was, a message stating that Mr. Kang had deposited 330 million won. Hyuksu looked up at Kang and told him that he really did it. He was genuinely shocked. The guy actually pulled it off. The scene flashed back to 1 year prior. Kang was sitting with Hyuksu, who was going through the property papers. Hyuksu told him that the total amount came to 330 million won. And of course, Hyuksu mentioned that he'd heard about the big fire. Everyone had, and he reassured Kang that the amount should be more than enough for the hospital bills, and urged him to keep his head up. As Hyuksu prepared to leave, Kang asked in a hesitant voice if he could buy back the workshop. Hyuksu stopped and asked what Kang just said. Kang repeated his question. If he could somehow raise the money, would Hyuksu sell the workshop back to him? Hyuksu advised him that buying a burned-down workshop would just be a waste of money. He'd be better off buying a new one if he needed it. But Kang insisted that it had to be their workshop. The place was filled with memories of his father, every single one. Hyuksu thought it over. Then he decided to grant Kang a grace period. Exactly 1 year. 1 year to come up with 330 million won, or the workshop would be gone forever. However, he warned him that the second the year was up, he would sell the property to the first buyer. No exceptions. Kang thanked him warmly, while Hyuksu told him he'd be waiting for his call. Back in the present, reading the deposit message again, Hyuksu repeated his deep admiration for Kang. He admitted that although he was the one who made the offer, in his heart he knew he was asking for the impossible. There was no way this kid could pull it off. But here they were. Kang explained that the 1 year period was just a rough estimate, and that the opportunity to sell such a property could have ended at any time. But Hyuksu had already kept his promise. Kang asked why Hyuksu was so kind to him. What was in it for him? Hyuksu replied that Kang was the first person ever to ask to buy back a property after selling it. The first one. He added that he just wanted to encourage someone like him, someone who refused to give up. Kang thanked Hyuksu again and thought to himself that thanks to him he didn't have to give up the workshop, and he needed to give Hyuksu something in return. Kang asked him if he was familiar with a game called Ares. Hyuksu laughed and replied that of course he knew it. Who hasn't heard of it these days? The game was everywhere. Kang revealed that he was actually a blacksmith in Ares. Hyuksu commented that this was the perfect job for him. It made sense considering his background. Kang offered to make him an artifact as a gift. Hyuksu's eyes lit up. He excitedly asked if Kang could make him a custom piece regardless of the effect type or level. Anything? Kang smiled and replied, of course, promising that he would make him anything he wanted. Kang entered a tavern where Belle called him over to sit with her. This was the first time they'd seen each other since the undead incident. Belle complained about how hard it was to find him. Kang apologized, but she said she was just kidding. Relax. Belle properly introduced herself, explaining that she was the chief strategist for the Golden Shield Guild and the one who built the guild into what it was today. She added that on that day, the day of the bell, she became certain of one thing. Kang would one day become one of the top-ranking players. Without a doubt. Therefore, Belle got straight to the point. She told him that when he eventually created a guild, she wanted to be its first member. Simple as that. Kang jokingly reminded her that she was calling him a scammer just the other day, and now she wanted to join his guild? The irony. Belle immediately apologized but justified her stance by saying anyone would have misunderstood in that situation. Kang told her he was just kidding, and that he was also looking forward to working with her. They shook hands. But before that, Kang decided to tell her his plans. Belle was shocked to learn that Kang was going to meet the Sword King Barad, one of the 10 legends. Kang confirmed that he would enter the Goyard martial arts tournament. He added that the bread he was eating was delicious and wondered if the winner would really receive their prize from Barad himself. Belle confirmed this, but she was worried. She explained that this tournament was a gathering of rising stars from all over, and it was no joke. Seriously, the competition was insane. Kang simply replied that this was exactly why he had to win. Belle wondered how he could say that so simply. Could he even taste his food right now? Kang reassured her not to worry and told her that he would aim for the top using his specialty. Belle was left puzzled. His specialty? What did that mean? When Kang asked if she was going to eat, she replied that she was full. Somehow she'd lost her appetite. The day of the Goyard martial arts tournament arrived. The tournament's head welcomed the outsiders with great fanfare. He announced that the tournament would begin the moment he stepped off the stage, and that they would all face monsters shortly. He added that although they might not be able to see him, His Majesty King Barad was watching them, so they'd better be on their best behavior. He wished them luck, and a system window announced the start of the tournament. In the arena, the participants faced the monsters. The first mission was to survive the golem's attack with a 1-hour time limit. The participants rushed into battle enthusiastically, with one expecting a golem to be the first opponent. Easy enough, right? A system window announced the first trial of the tournament. Whoever killed the stone golem level 109 would receive a reward. A participant was surprised by the golem's high level, wondering if it was always this high. He noted that the first round was supposed to be easy. What the hell? Another participant recklessly charged forward, declaring, "First come, first served." But he was immediately crushed by the golem, resulting in a forced logout. Just like that, the other participants screamed in terror and tried to dodge the attacks, but they fell one by one and were logged out as well. The participants screamed in terror, realizing this situation was completely different from the information they had. How were they supposed to defeat this thing? Kang stood there observing the situation calmly, while the other players cursed their bad luck. They'd been deceived. Completely and utterly deceived. Elsewhere, the tournament head, Bacol, realized the tournament had turned into a complete disaster. A stone golem from the high-level tournament had been mixed in by mistake. How did this even happen? Bacol feared that at this rate all tournament participants would be eliminated. He decided he had to see His Majesty immediately. Bacol rushed into the king's chamber shouting, "Your Majesty!" He insisted they had to stop the tournament now. Right now? But King Barad calmly rejected his request. Bacol asked in confusion, "What?" But the king interrupted him, asking if he still didn't understand the situation. The king told him to look closely at that warrior. Pay attention. In the arena, Kang fired a glowing arrow that hit the stone golem directly. It was revealed that this was Kang's third custom creation, the Orichalcum Aegis, a special arrow that had the ability to return to the user after being fired, like a boomerang but deadlier. The other players were amazed, wondering how an arrow could return like that. What kind of skill was this? Kang thought that this arrow was the reward he got from the castle region, and it was amazing. Made of the legendary Orichalcum, it was performing as well as expected, maybe even better. Kang fired the arrow again, hitting the golem. As it returned, the arrow nearly hit another player, who yelled at Kang to be careful. Was he trying to kill him? Kang immediately apologized. "My bad." As a result of the hit, the stone golem was stunned for 4 seconds. The players shouted that the golem was stunned. This was their chance to attack. Now, the players launched an all-out assault, hitting it with everything they had. But the golem recovered and roared in anger. It began to attack violently, and the players shouted warnings to each other. The golem continued its random rampage and headed towards Kang. One player shouted that they just needed to hold on a little longer and it would be over. Another yelled at Kang to run. "Get out of there." The players took the hits and struggled to stay alive, barely hanging on. At the last moment, Kang switched his weapon to his daylight sword, declaring that it wasn't over yet. He blocked the golem's massive blow, but the force of the impact threw him to the ground. Hard, Bacol pleaded with King Barad, saying they had to stop the tournament now. He pointed out that the participant seemed to have reached his limit, but the king just watched with interest. And then something unexpected happened that caught his attention. In the arena, despite having fallen, Kang used the emergency god crafting skill again. The crafting process completed in seconds, resulting in the Damascus Wooldew, a weapon specifically designed to cleave through stone. With a single powerful strike, Kang successfully defeated the stone golem. One hit, done. The Damascus Wooldew disappeared. It was an emergency creation after all. While Kang received a flood of level-up notifications, Kang was amazed to realize his level had increased by 14. 14 levels, while the other players looked at him in disbelief, wondering how he managed to defeat it. How? Kang asked them in confusion if they weren't supposed to defeat it. The players replied that the mission was to survive. How could anyone defeat a monster with such a huge level gap? They explained that the trial consisted of 3 stages, and the appearance of this golem had already disrupted the balance. It wasn't there to be defeated, it was there to survive. Kang now understood the situation. Oops. Suddenly Kang felt extremely dizzy and lost consciousness. The other players gathered around him, wondering if he'd fainted. They noticed that he hadn't been logged out though. They started discussing how many weapons he used, initially thinking he was multi-skilled, but now realizing he was a weapon master, and they wished they had just one of his amazing weapons. Even one would be enough. At that moment, Bakel announced to all participants that due to an error on the organizer's part, the martial arts tournament would be suspended. He ordered them all to leave. Just like that, news of Kang's achievement spread rapidly online, with thousands watching a live stream of him unconscious in the arena. Viewers wondered how he managed to defeat the stone golem alone. They asked for information about his bow and arrow. Someone noticed that Kang had dropped his arrow, and upon zooming in they saw the name Kang Hyunsu engraved on it. The viewers immediately connected him to the Kang who created the unrepairable bell in the castle region. They were stunned. How could a blacksmith be so powerful? And his equipment was superior to anything they'd ever seen. In the offices of the Beholder Company, the customer service team faced a flood of inquiries about why the tournament was suspended. The staff couldn't provide clear answers, merely stating that it was a decision made by Ares' free will, or that it related to an internal issue in the kingdom of Goyard. They apologized to the customers repeatedly, over and over. In the development department, an employee told her team leader that there was a big problem. He told her he was busy right now. She informed him that the Goyard martial arts tournament had been suspended. He replied nonchalantly that they knew this would happen. No surprise there. The employee shouted that this wasn't the problem. The real problem, King Barad had summoned the user Kang. Personally, the team leader was shocked, wondering how they could meet so quickly. The tournament arrangements still required time. The employee confirmed that Kang was on his way to the reception hall now. Right now, the team leader realized he was in trouble. He'd be working all night again. He commented that this user defied all logic. His actions were completely unpredictable. He wondered what would happen if Kang succeeded in Barad's request and their affinity reached its maximum. He concluded that in that case Kang would master the art of the Sword King's swordsmanship and become the strongest blacksmith ever. The strongest? The developer team leader commented that it wouldn't be easy as the decision rested on Barad's free will. His colleague expressed a feeling that Kang would succeed. The team leader looked worried and asked her not to say such ominous things. Please, just don't. The next day in the game, Kang was escorted to the throne room, thinking that he would meet Barad sooner than he expected. Way sooner. Kang knelt before King Barad, who addressed him as stranger. Barad explained that normally the prize would have been presented in front of everyone, but he asked for his understanding in simplifying matters due to the unexpected incident. He added that everyone would acknowledge his remarkable performance as a weapon master yesterday. The king offered Kang a monetary prize of 13,000 gold pieces, but Kang suddenly stood up and interrupted the king, saying, "Your Majesty, I heard you were looking for me." The king's guards were enraged by his insolence. They believed that such arrogance could not be tolerated. No matter how rare the warrior, how dare he speak while his majesty hadn't finished speaking? Kang calmly replied, announcing that he was Kang the blacksmith. The guards' anger grew, and they prepared to remove him immediately. But King Barad ordered them to stop. He confirmed that Kang was the guest he had been waiting for. Kang formally greeted his majesty, King Barad. Barad, one of Ares' 10 legends. Barad told him that he'd taken his time. Kang replied that the road here was rough, very rough. Barad asked him if he knew why he was summoned. Kang guessed that it was to commission him to forge a sword. The king confirmed this. Barad explained that even the best blacksmith in the kingdom and even Deng, the master of the sword tower, had failed at this task. All of them had failed. For this reason, he wanted to know what made Kang trustworthy. Under immense pressure, Kang replied that he had only one thing. He'd come all this way believing in nothing but his own skill. That was it. King Barad laughed loudly. Impressed by the stranger's boldness, the king decided to bet on Kang's confidence and ordered his men to bring what he had prepared. A glowing chest was presented before Kang. The chest contained 100-year-old cold iron, a special ore that had absorbed cold for 100 years and possessed fire resistance and ice properties. Kang looked at the metal in amazement, thinking it looked like it came straight out of a martial arts novel. Barad specified his request. He wanted a sword of epic grade or higher that emanated frost. He promised that if he was satisfied he would grant Kang anything he desired. Anything. But he warned him that if he was disappointed, Kang would never set foot in the kingdom of Goyard again. A quest window appeared, titled The King's Commission, which required the king's acknowledgement. The reward was the fulfillment of one request from Barad, and the penalty for failure was expulsion from the kingdom of Goyard. Kang accepted the quest, promising that he wouldn't disappoint the king. He would surely succeed. Later in the blacksmith's workshop, Kang felt his neck burn from the intensity of the gaze directed at him. He turned to see a woman watching him. It was Bella, the vice-captain of the Knights of the Kingdom of Goyard, and her level, 301. Kang thought to himself that even though he was a stranger, placing a guard on him so blatantly was excessive. But then he retracted his thought. It was natural that they wouldn't trust him easily. It made sense. Bella told him to pretend she wasn't there and to focus on his work. Kang asked her with a sarcastic smile if his staring was that obvious. She replied, yes. Blunt. Bella thought to herself, who does this young man think he is? She remembered that His Highness had pinned his last chance on him, and she vowed that he'd better not fail. Kang felt the immense pressure she was putting on him. Suddenly a doorbell rang in the game, puzzling Kang. A doorbell. He apologized to Bella, explaining that it seemed something had happened in his real world. He asked if she minded if he stepped out for a moment. Kang woke up in his capsule in the real world and went to open the door. He was surprised to see the landlady standing there. Kang asked her the reason for her visit. The lady told him that she'd decided to sell the house. She explained that her husband had recently been unemployed and they needed to sort things out. She apologized to him. Kang told her not to apologize. He felt like he was the one who should be sorry. She'd rented the place to him for cheaper than the market rate, and he'd been late with the rent several times. He asked her when he needed to leave. She told him that she'd need him to vacate within 2 weeks. The lady felt ashamed before him, but he asked her not to say that. He assured her that he'd lived well here, and bowed to her respectfully. After she left, Kang repeated the deadline to himself. 2 weeks. Kang felt exhausted. He thought that although he'd earned a good amount of money in Aries, his father's hospital bills cost tens of millions. Buying back the burnt workshop had cost him 330 million won, and he hadn't even started his own burn treatments yet. He wondered in despair where was he supposed to go now. At that moment, his phone rang. The caller was Kim Hyun-nel. When he answered, Neil asked him what he was doing. She told him she had a good idea about the quest, which was why she called. Kang asked her to call him back later, explaining that his head was a bit preoccupied right now. Nell asked him if something was wrong. Kang told her that Barad's quest was important, but he suddenly had to move out of his house in 2 weeks. Nell angrily reminded him how important this quest was. She told him that she expected 2 main outcomes from it. Nell explained that right now people were arguing about whether the champion of the Goyard martial arts tournament and the blacksmith Kang were the same person. She suggested he not clarify it yet. When he revealed the truth later, it would blow up. Huge. She added that he'd received a commission to forge a sword from Barad, one of the most influential NPCs in Aries. She asked him to just imagine Barad revealing a new sword engraved with the name Kang. That would be the moment his value would skyrocket, which was exactly why she said she'd stand by him. Kang thanked her, saying she'd brought him back to his senses. He promised he would do his best. Kang returned to the game to find Bella shouting at him angrily. Bella yelled at Kang, asking why he was only now returning. He asked in confusion what happened. Bella told him that His Royal Highness Barad had been trapped in the dragon's nest. Kang asked in shock where King Barad was trapped, then asked for the exact location of the dragon's nest. Bella asked incredulously how he could be surprised when he didn't even know where it was. Kang replied that he thought he should at least act surprised. Bella told him that time was running out and quickly explained. She clarified that the Flame Nest was the general name for the fire-type monster region. Among them was the Ifrit Dungeon, a place from which no one had returned alive, except for His Majesty King Barad. He was the only one. Kang wondered why the king would enter a dungeon he'd already visited, especially since he hadn't even received the weapon Kang was supposed to make. Didn't make sense. Bella answered that it was because His Majesty's target of revenge was there. Kang was surprised to hear the words target of revenge. Revenge. The scene shifted to the Flame Nest, where King Barad arrived, suffering from his injuries. He looked at the gate before him, realizing that once he stepped through it, everything would begin. He thought that even his current sword wouldn't be enough. He felt relieved that his men were able to escape safely, but he knew that reinforcements would take at least 3 days to arrive. 3 days. He smiled bitterly, admitting that perhaps he should have waited for the stranger to finish the sword. A sad memory crept into his mind, and he wished his son Ban were still alive. He would have been about the same age as that young man Kang. He remembered how his son died in his arms, calling out, "Father." In that painful memory, Barad asked his son how he came here without telling him. Ban replied that he thought if he conquered this dungeon he would finally become a son his father could be proud of. But he now realized he was too weak. He apologized. Barad shouted at his son that there was no need to apologize. He told him to hold on to life. Just hold on. But Ban apologized to his father again, then breathed his last in his arms. Barad cradled his lifeless body in despair. In the present, Barad decided it would have been better to wait for the stranger's sword, but he couldn't let Ifrit escape. He'd waited years for him to appear, and he was determined to eliminate him, no matter what. Then Barad walked steadily toward the blazing dungeon gate, one step at a time. Bella explained that since the prince's death, His Majesty had tried every possible way to hunt down Ifrit, but Ifrit hadn't revealed himself so easily. The bastard was too smart for that. She added that this might be His Majesty's last chance. Bella frankly admitted that she found it difficult to trust a stranger like Kang. Who wouldn't? But she added that if His Majesty entrusted this to him, there must be a reason. Some reason she couldn't see yet. Then, Bella did something unexpected. She bowed before him. As a knight of the Kingdom of Goyard, she begged him to save His Majesty. A new emergency quest appeared, titled, A Sword That Can Save the King. The quest required accepting Bella's request. The reward? An increase in her trust. The penalty for failure? Barad's death. The mission was simple: forge a blade capable of saving him. Kang thought about Barad's tragic story. He remembered how on that day he too had almost lost everything in the flames. The pain, the despair, all of it. He wondered if he could have moved on if he'd lost his family like Barad had. Probably not. With firm resolve, he told Bella that he would do everything he could. Kang immediately started working in the workshop, hammering the metal with everything he had, then plunging it into water. He thought that they said Ifrit's heat could melt even unique grade weapons like butter. He concluded that he would need to forge a weapon that surpassed the unique grade. Simple as that. He decided to focus on the effect of the frozen stone. As he worked, a system window appeared, telling him that his understanding of the 100-year-old cold iron had deepened. Another message appeared, announcing that the spirit of the blacksmith had been activated. The message explained that while forging this blade, Kang had immersed himself in the work more than anyone else. His passion, determination, and empathy had driven him into a state of complete focus, total concentration. As a result, the system announced that Kang's first legendary grade sword was being forged. A bright light emanated from the workshop, and Bella wondered if it was complete. Kang stood there, holding the new glowing sword, and declared that it was time. Time to go save His Majesty, King Barad. Meanwhile, in the flame nest, Barad screamed in pain as he took a heavy blow. He got to his knees, determined to end this today. No matter what, the leader of the flame nest, Ifrit, level 409, appeared before him. Barad shouted Ifrit's name, and Ifrit scoffed at him, saying he had no idea how long he'd waited to meet him. Then they charged at each other in an epic battle, and Ifrit let out a deafening roar. The fierce battle between King Barad and Ifrit continued. Barad blocked Ifrit's violent fiery attacks, but Ifrit's immense power overwhelmed him. Barad was surprised to see that Ifrit's sword was formed from pure flame. And of course, a series of violent blows that he couldn't block followed. Ifrit shouted in triumph and unleashed a wave of flames, forcing Barad to retreat in pain. Ifrit laughed triumphantly while Barad knelt defeated. He cursed the situation, believing it had ended in failure. This was it. Ifrit prepared to deliver the final blow and threw his spear towards Barad. But then a huge icy sword appeared out of nowhere, stopping Ifrit's attack. Kang and Bella had arrived just in time. Bella shouted at King Barad and told him to use the new sword. Now, Barad grabbed the new glowing sword that was thrown before him. A system window appeared displaying the details of Kang's custom sword for Barad. Legendary grade. The sword possessed amazing special abilities. Plus 343% resistance to the fire attribute. Plus 194% attack power with the ice attribute. Kang asked the king to try using it. Barad gripped the sword, which glowed with icy power. Barad unleashed the frost flower skill, and a mighty wave of ice swept across the battlefield, freezing Ifrit's fiery attacks. Ifrit screamed in pain as the sword's icy power countered its heat. Burian declared that it was over. Burian succeeded in delivering a finishing blow, defeating Ifrit. But suddenly, Ifrit's body began to glow and explode, and Barad was caught right in the middle of the massive explosion that destroyed the entire dungeon. Bella screamed at King Barad to get out immediately, warning him of the danger. But Barad ordered her to stay put. It was a royal command. He looked at a locket with a picture of his son and thought that he wanted to end things here, right now. Bella felt hopeless. She knew she had to save His Majesty, but he'd ordered her not to come. She wondered in confusion what she should do. What could she do? Kang stepped forward alone and told her that he would go and get His Majesty. He used the emergency god crafting skill to create a flame-resistant shield. Kang entered the blazing inferno and called out for His Majesty. King Barad. The king ordered him to go back, saying he'd done more than his share. Kang refused to leave, insisting that he came here to accompany him, and he wouldn't leave. Not without him. Kang asked him if his decision was because of the person in the locket. The king confirmed this, admitting that because of him, his son had left this world. He wondered with what face he could continue to live. What right did he have? Kang asked him if he thought the person in the locket would be happy about this. Barad became furious, shouting at Kang that he dared not speak. No one could know this feeling, the grief of losing a child because of him. Barad grabbed Kang by the collar and shouted at him. How dare he even talk about it? Kang admitted that he would never know this specific sorrow, but he clarified that he too had almost lost a dear family member. He revealed that his father was in a coma. Kang told the king that he used to pray every day for his father to open his eyes, but now, he was just happy that his father was alive. In any way, he assured him that this was what his son must feel too. Barad embraced Kang as he cried, asking him to let his son go in peace. The king saw a vision of his smiling son and apologized to him repeatedly, admitting that his foolish father was wrong, so wrong. Kang whispered in his ear that he had to live. He asked him shouldn't he become a father his son can be proud of? King Barad agreed with him, saying he shouldn't be a shameful father. King Barad smiled and told Kang to go. Let's go. They emerged from the collapsing flames and Bella rushed towards them, shouting, "Stranger, is His Majesty okay?" Kang reassured her that His Majesty was fine. He told her he'd be back soon. A system message appeared, announcing that his health points had reached 0 and he would be forcibly logged out. Kang reassured her that strangers don't die, and then he disappeared. Just like that. Bella looked on in shock while King Barad collapsed into her arms, whispering that the boy had saved him. Bella shouted His Majesty's name and told him to regain consciousness. "Stay with me." Barad lost consciousness with a smile on his face. Kang woke up in the real world, and a system message appeared, stating that due to the forced logout penalty, his level had decreased by 1. He looked at his bandaged hands with tears in his eyes and vowed to his father that he would move forward, no matter what. In the throes of a deep coma, King Barid found himself lost in a dark void. But then a scene he could only have dreamt of in his deepest wishes unfolded before him. He saw his late son Ban, standing in a lush green field. Its verdure stretched as far as the eye could see. Suddenly the silence was broken by a tender voice he'd long yearned for, calling him father. The dense darkness around Barid vanished in an instant, and he found himself standing in that bright, vibrant field. His son ran towards him with a pure smile. While Barid approached with hesitant steps, he asked in a voice filled with hope and doubt if this was truly his beloved son. Ban confirmed his identity with a calm smile, but his features soon turned serious as he told him he'd come to bid him one last farewell. Shock gripped Barid's heart as his eyes widened in denial. He grabbed his son's arms tightly, as if fearing he might vanish before him again. He asked in a trembling voice laced with pain what one last farewell meant. What did he mean? Ban gently reminded his father of what their friend Kang had said before. He expressed his sincere wish for his father to be happy and healthy. He asked him with a pleading gaze to stop blaming himself and to live for himself now. Please. After his final touching words, Ban's translucent body began to fade, turning into particles of light. The king suddenly awakened from his long coma, gasping for air. He was still whispering his son's name, Ban. In a matter of days, 2 of his loyal aides who had been watching over him with concern rushed to his side. They told him in utter amazement that he'd finally woken up after being unconscious for 3 whole days. 3 days. They anxiously asked him how he was feeling. Barid told his aides calmly and steadily that his son Ban had visited him in his dream to say goodbye. He then added with a tone of deep gratitude that he owed this miracle to that boy. He ordered his aides to bring Kang to him at once. He desperately needed to see and speak with him. Later, as the king sat in a quiet room bathed in the warm sunlight streaming through a large window, a guard announced Kang's arrival in a formal tone. Kang entered the room with steady steps and performed the royal greeting to King Barad with a respectful bow. The king motioned for him to rise and be at ease with a calm look. Kang respectfully asked the king about his condition and health. The king replied that he felt fine now and invited him to sit in the opposite chair. He explained that he'd summoned him to ask about an important matter on his mind. Barad told him in a serious tone that he was well aware that outsiders like him were immortal beings who were reborn even after death, but he believed this immortality didn't necessarily mean they didn't fear death and its pain. He then looked directly into Kang's eyes and asked him the real reason that drove him to risk his life to save him in that dire situation. Why? Kang answered truthfully that there were 2 main reasons that compelled him. He explained that the first reason was that he saw in the king's eyes a heavy burden and a deep sorrow similar to the one he carried in his own heart, and he wished with all his heart that the king would choose to continue living and face life. The king deeply contemplated these sincere words, instinctively touching his chest and repeating the phrase, "a burden like my own," as if trying to process it. When the king curiously asked about the second reason, Kang replied with a shy smile, scratching his head humbly. The other reason? His absolute confidence that His Majesty would grant him a generous reward befitting the saving of a king's life. Barid smiled faintly at the word confidence, noting that it was a bold answer that showed great self-assurance. The king agreed with him gratefully, confirming that he was indeed planning to give him a great reward beyond his expectations. He presented him with an elegant sealed scroll, explaining that it represented the price of the exceptional sword he'd forged for him. When Kang carefully opened the scroll, a transparent blue system window flashed before him with a clear and direct message. He had received 117,600 gold pieces. Kang froze in place for a few moments, staring at the number that surpassed all his expectations. He was in utter shock and amazement at the unimaginable sum. The king calmly and contentedly remarked that the sword had indeed saved his life, and therefore it deserved at least that amount, if not more. Kang bowed deeply and involuntarily, expressing his thanks and gratitude to his majesty. The king asked him to sit again and raise his head. Barad told Kang in a fatherly tone that just as he'd advised, he would try to live his life to the fullest from now on, so that he wouldn't feel shame or regret when he met his son Ban again in the afterlife. The king hoped that Kang would do the same. He asked him to live a strong and hopeful life for his father, who awaited his awakening one day. He then kindly asked him to visit him from time to time at the palace, expressing his sincere curiosity to hear the stories of his future life and the interesting people he would meet on his journey. Kang agreed immediately, and without hesitation telling the king that he too would like to listen to his stories and wisdom. The king smiled, pleased with this mutual understanding. He told Kang that he was the one who granted him this great realization and new strength. He then asked him in a friendly tone if he could consider him a close friend. At that moment, a system message appeared, announcing that his affinity with King Barad had reached its maximum. Another message followed, stating that the friend's blessing was now upon him. Kang immediately recognized the immense value of becoming friends with a central and important character like King Barad. He shook the king's hand warmly and replied that the honor was all his in gaining this friendship. In celebration of their new friendship, the king proudly declared that he wished to pass down his family's swordsmanship, a priceless treasure. The Knight Commander Benson, who was standing nearby, intervened with visible shock on his face. He questioned how His Majesty could bequeath his precious martial arts to a stranger to the kingdom. He respectfully reminded him that he'd already appointed Lord as his successor and had begun teaching him the secrets of the sword, and that one must be qualified and worthy to learn these sacred arts. The king calmly and confidently replied that he didn't intend to teach just anyone, but someone who had proven his worth. A new shining skill quest window titled Sword King's Swordsmanship suddenly appeared before Kang. The quest specified that he had to prove his worth by landing 3 or more valid attacks on the Knight Commander Benson himself. The reward, learning the legendary Sword King's swordsmanship. King Barad announced decisively that Commander Benson would personally test Kang's qualifications. After Barad granted him a 2-day leave to rest and prepare, the first thing Kang did after logging out of the game was use a portion of his reward money to pay off all of his father's accumulated hospital bills. Every last one. After that, he rented a new, more comfortable place to live, bidding farewell to his old cramped apartment. He also gratefully went to thank his former landlady, who had been lenient with his late rent payments, and gave her a small gift. After settling his basic affairs, he called his close friend Jahoon and enthusiastically invited him to dinner. His treat. Jahoon was skeptical at first, thinking it would be a simple invitation for instant noodles as usual. But he was utterly surprised when they met at a luxurious restaurant serving the finest grilled Korean beef. Jahoon joked, unable to believe his eyes, saying that now he'd seen everything in life. Kang was treating him to such expensive food? Really? Kang told him with a smile that he wanted to treat him to a nice meal because Jahoon had done so much for him and provided invaluable support. During the enjoyable dinner, Kang presented an elegant gift bag to his friend. Jahoon opened it curiously, only to discover in shock and amazement that it contained a pair of luxury Hermes shoes he'd been dreaming of for a long time. Jahoon pointed at Kang in disbelief, asking where he got all this money, and if this expensive gift was really for him. Kang explained it was a small gift because he knew Jahoon had wanted those shoes for a while. He also told him he'd transferred the money for the game capsule he'd given him back to his bank account. All of it. Overjoyed, Jahoon hugged the shoebox happily and thanked his friend warmly and gratefully. Kang felt at that moment that his life was finally changing for the better, thanks to Jahoon. He told him that he was the one who should be thanking him for everything. Jahoon got flustered by this emotional talk, so Kang jokingly told him to shut up and eat before the meat got cold. In the grand and spacious training hall, Kang's anticipated test began. Knight Commander Benson told him in a formal tone to draw his weapon, asserting that he wouldn't go easy on him just because he'd become a friend of His Majesty. In an unexpected move, Kang pulled out a piece of raw metal from his pouch instead of a ready-made sword. Kang responded calmly and confidently that he was looking forward to it and expected no leniency. Suddenly, Kang used the emergency god crafting skill. Benson and the knights present were surprised by the bright light and heat emanating from the weapon being forged in a flash between Kang's hands. When the dazzling light faded, Kang appeared holding a plain-looking, simply designed sword. Benson initially thought he was expecting something amazing and legendary to appear, but all he saw was an ordinary, unremarkable sword. Really? This was it? Benson charged forward to attack with confidence, mockingly wondering if Kang really thought he could defeat the kingdom's knight commander with such a simple and primitive sword. As the blades clashed forcefully, Benson realized in a split second that the sword Kang just crafted had extremely low durability. It was incredibly fragile. As soon as the blades touched, Kang's brittle sword shattered instantly in a loud explosion, scattering into countless metal fragments. These sharp fragments flew in every direction like small projectiles, piercing Benson's armor and hitting his body in several different places. He let out a sudden cry of both pain and surprise. The fragments fell to the hall floor with a metallic clatter. Fortunately, they didn't cause any significant damage or deep wounds to Benson. Kang stood there calmly and coolly explained that his mission was to succeed in attacking him, not to win the duel itself. A series of system messages appeared before him, confirming the success of the consecutive attacks. The count rapidly increased, announcing that the total number of successful hits the commander received was 59. Kang added that there was no rule in the test conditions that prevented him from using this innovative method. The astonished Benson, looking at the scratches on his armor, admitted that he would have never imagined such a clever and deceptive plan. Addressing Kang now as Lord with all due respect, he asked him about his true identity. Who was he, really? Kang revealed himself with an aura of confidence, declaring that he was the god of blacksmiths. Upon hearing this legendary title, Benson and the other knights bowed before him in perfect unison, declaring it a great honor to meet the god of blacksmiths. They pledged to spread the swordsmanship he would learn everywhere. Kang felt embarrassed and immensely pressured by their exaggerated reaction. He asked them to stop and get up immediately. Afterward, Kang underwent 2 full weeks of harsh and comprehensive training under the personal supervision of Benson and King Barad. Thanks to this intensive training, he successfully acquired the Sword King's swordsmanship skill, and his expertise in sword mastery also increased significantly and noticeably. Kang thought that this strict training style reminded him of other powerful swordsmen he'd met in the past. Since his player level was still relatively low, he was only able to learn the first 3 chapters of the swordsmanship: Beast's Aura, Raging Wave Sword, and Sword's Cry. He was promised by the king that he would learn the remaining chapters once he raised his proficiency and sword mastery level. After his grueling training period ended, Kang went to meet King Barad again in the throne room. King Barad warmly welcomed him as a friend. Kang told the king that he had an important request he'd like to make. Now that he'd proven his worth, Kang revealed his request. He desperately needed the 100-year-old cold iron, the same rare material used to craft the king's legendary sword. The king considered his request with interest, thinking for a moment before replying that he would gladly give it to his dear friend. But King Barad regretfully informed Kang that the piece of cold iron used to make the sword was unfortunately the last remaining piece in the kingdom's vaults. Kang was shocked and disappointed, realizing that this would significantly hinder his future plans. The king smiled and told him not to despair so quickly. He explained that more cold iron could be obtained directly from its source, the fearsome frost mine. The king suggested that Kang go and get it himself. On a new adventure, Kang wondered with hesitation and concern if he could really do it alone. King Barad ordered his loyal aide Bella to go to the frost mine and accompany Kang on his mission. Bella initially objected politely, explaining that her first duty was to stay by His Majesty's side and protect him. The king insisted that this journey would be a good and beneficial experience for her to hone her skills as well, so Bella immediately agreed to carry out the royal command. The king used his recent victory to announce before a crowd of players and nobles his success in conquering Ifrit's tomb. The players were impressed by the news, commenting that Barad was truly a legendary figure. He deserved the title Sword King. Some sharp-eyed players noticed the stunning sword Barad proudly carried, pointing out its strong and unique icy aura. Upon closer inspection, using evaluation skills, they discovered with shock that the name Kang was engraved in small, intricate letters on it. The players recognized the name immediately. It was also written on the arrow used by the winner of the recent martial arts tournament. This led them to speculate that the mysterious blacksmith Kang was now in the kingdom of Goyard. Players eagerly discussed the mysterious identity of the blacksmith Kang in forums. His age, level, and even gender hadn't been revealed. A funny rumor spread that he was a portly man in his 40s, who spent all his time in his workshop. Regardless of his true identity, a large number of players began to follow his virtual workshop in the hope that he would accept their requests and craft legendary weapons for them one day. In the real world, Kang checked his smartphone and noticed that his workshop's follower count had skyrocketed to 310,000, all thanks to Barad's blatant display of his sword during his official speech. He realized that everyone had become very interested in the blacksmith Kang, and was searching for him. And he thought about the chaos that might ensue if it were revealed that the winner of the tournament was the same person as the blacksmith Kang. He decided it was best to be extremely cautious for now and not reveal his identity. He still had a lot of work to do to achieve his goals. Before heading to the dangerous frost mine, Kang decided to send a message to someone he hadn't yet been able to express his gratitude to. Elsewhere, Hyuksu, the wealthy real estate investor and high-level casual player, sat in his luxurious office and reflected that King Barad had finally succeeded in clearing Ifrit's tomb after 3 failed attempts. He considered it a dungeon impenetrable for current players. Hyuksu bitterly recalled his many failed attempts to enter that dungeon to complete a special and rare quest. All his unique and expensive armors would melt from the unbearable intense heat inside. He sighed to himself that he had plenty of money but lacked the powerful tools and equipment to achieve his ambitions. He wondered if there was a skilled craftsman who could help him with this dilemma. At that moment, he received an in-game message from Lord Kang, telling him that he was contacting him to fulfill the promise he made the other day about crafting armor for him. Hyuksu smiled broadly, immediately realizing the identity of the sender he'd been looking for. At first, Hyuksu tried to remember what promise he was talking about. Then he realized he meant the artifact they'd discussed that day. He offered to fulfill the promise he made to him before, asking Kang if there were any changes to the specifications Hyuksu had requested. He planned to craft and send it soon. Hyuksu wondered to himself if Kang was truly capable of crafting the piece he needed in his current state. Hyuksu replied that there were no changes, then asked Kang about his current level. Kang answered that he was at level 59. Hyuksu thought that his level was still very low. Pretty low, actually. Hyuksu ended the conversation by asking Kang to do his best if it wasn't too much trouble. As he sat in his office, Hyuksu decided that despite Kang's low level, he was a young man with a bright future, so he could place some hope in him. Later in his car, Hyuksu saw a news article praising Kang the blacksmith as a key contributor to Barad's success in conquering Ifrit, the maker of the weapon the king used. Hyuksu wondered if he should send a request to Kang the blacksmith as well, but he quickly abandoned the idea, convinced that Kang, who rejected requests from top players, would never accept a request from a casual player like him. Hyuksu felt frustrated, realizing that the time left for him to complete his class change quest was running out. He finally decided he had to try sending the request to Kang the blacksmith at least once. What did he have to lose? Meanwhile, Kang and Bella arrived at the frost mine. Kang was amazed by the icy landscape. A system message appeared, announcing that he was the first user to enter this mine and would receive double experience points for a week as a reward. Kang smiled, happy to be the first and to get double experience. Nice bonus. He asked Bella if she had visited the place before, and she replied that it was her first time as well. Kang thought that she was still cold and distant. Suddenly, a young man carrying a pickaxe appeared before them and asked how they got here. He explained that this place couldn't be entered without permission. Bella stepped forward, introduced herself as the vice captain of the Royal Knights, and showed him a document proving their entry with royal permission. The young man was stunned to see the royal seal for the first time. He expressed his awe of the royal family. He introduced himself as Banya, a miner. Kang introduced himself as a blacksmith. Banya told them he was happy to see strangers after a long time, but he insisted he couldn't allow anyone to enter this mine. As Kang worried about what to do, Banya smiled and told them that fortunately his father was the chief of the miners. Banya offered to take them to his father and led the way. Kang thanked Banya, who told him not to worry about it. No problem. As they walked, Kang noticed a huge crystal-covered monster and wondered if it was a monster. Banya replied that the sight was interesting, explaining that it was a type of dungeon. He explained that in the distant past monsters had appeared all over the mine, but 100 years ago a wizard came here and sealed them all inside that dungeon. Kang stared intently at the monster and asked with interest if the crystals attached to it were the 100-year-old cold iron. Banya confirmed this, but warned him not to be greedy. Getting too close could seriously hurt him. Banya continued his warning, explaining that inside the sealing barrier was the land of monsters. He added that while one might be able to enter, it would be difficult to return alive. He expressed the miners' disappointment that sealed mine probably contained the largest remaining amount of ore. However, he concluded that they had to be content. As long as those monsters were locked up, they could work safely. They reached their destination, and Banya pointed to a man, announcing that they'd arrived and that this person was his father. Banya ran forward, calling out to his father that they had visitors. Banya told Kang that he would leave now that he'd shown him the way. Kang thanked him for his guidance. Banya wondered to himself why a stranger would come to this place. Kang politely approached Banya's father. The man noticed the newcomers, a royal knight Bella and a stranger Kang. Kang confirmed that he was indeed a stranger. The man's name was Rex, the chief of the miners, level 231. Rex commented that they were an odd combination and asked why they'd come. Kang explained that he was looking for an ore better than the 100-year-old cold iron, better than anything else. Rex seemed surprised, repeating the phrase, "An ore better than that?" Kang asked him if he knew anything about it. Rex thought to himself about the existence of an ore better than cold iron, then replied that such a thing existed, but he had no reason to tell him, especially not a greedy stranger like him. Rex thought that if news of such an ore in the frost mine spread, the mine would surely fall into chaos. He glanced at Bella, noticing that this stranger had come with permission from the royal family. Rex wondered if there was a way to gently persuade them to leave. He then asked Kang if he'd ever mined ore before. Kang shook his head and answered no. Rex explained that an average miner dug up 3 pieces of ore a day. He then made an offer. If Kang could extract 40 pieces within a week, he would give him the information. A quest window, grade A, appeared before Kang, asking him to extract 40 pieces of ore within 1 week. The condition? he had to be the one who received Rex's offer. The reward varied by quantity, and the penalty for failure was not getting the information about the rarest ore. Rex asked Kang if he accepted the offer. Kang clenched his fist and asked what he would do if Kang extracted more than 40. Rex seemed a bit surprised. He scoffed, saying it wouldn't happen. But if Kang succeeded, he promised to personally extract the ore for him, provided that Kang received no help from his companions. Kang asked if he promised. Rex agreed and gave his word. Kang told him he would see him in a week. After Kang and Bella left, Rex suddenly shouted and called for his son. He knew he was hiding. He ordered him to come out. Rex scolded his son Banya, asking why he was wandering around while injured, not to mention eavesdropping on them, and grabbed his ear. As they walked away, Bella asked Mr. Kang why he provoked the mine chief. Kang held out his hand and explained that the truth was, he knew he was coming to the mine, so he prepared something in advance. An advanced glowing mining axe materialized in his hand. Kang smiled as he held his axe, determined to get the better ore, no matter what it took. Bella stood behind him, thinking to herself that His Majesty had befriended a very eccentric person. 2 weeks later, Rex sat in contemplation. He remembered that the stranger Kang said he wouldn't leave the mine for a week, but Rex remained convinced that his success, even if he stayed that long, was completely impossible. Not a chance. Suddenly, Rex heard footsteps and was surprised to see the shadow of a person emerging from the mine entrance. Kang appeared, covered in soot. Rex exclaimed that the stranger had finally come out. He joked that his face at least looked like a miner now. Then he seriously announced that the promised deadline had come. He asked him to show the results. Kang said, "One moment." Rex scoffed to himself, thinking it was just as he expected. There was no way a stranger could succeed at this. But suddenly Kang extended his hand and poured out a huge pile of various ores in front of him. Rex jumped back in complete shock as he saw the glittering mountain of ores before him. Kang wiped the soot from his face, announcing the total 200 pieces. Rex shouted, pointing at Kang in disbelief. He asked who he really was. Was he the legendary miner? Kang said no and nonchalantly replied, holding his axe, that he was just an ordinary blacksmith. He thought so anyway. A system window popped up in front of them, displaying the complete specs of Kang's weapon. And let me tell you, this thing was no joke. It was called the Damascus Sword and Axe, a unique grade weapon boasting 12,000 durability and 332 attack power. Now here's where it gets interesting. There were absolutely no restrictions for its creator, meaning Kang could wield it however he pleased without any limitations whatsoever. But for anyone else trying to use it, yeah, they'd need to be somewhere between level 50 and 200 just to hold the damn thing. The weapon had special abilities too. It increased cutting power against stone by a staggering 170%, and reduced durability damage from stone by 70%. It could sometimes just decide to transform into an axe whenever it felt like it. As Kang stood there currently using it in its axe form, Rex looked over at the absolutely massive pile of ore stacked up nearby and muttered under his breath that he finally understand now. It all clicked for him in that moment. Kang had actually accomplished the task, just not in the way Rex had expected. He'd done it in his own way, as a true blacksmith would. Rex, feeling like he'd been a complete idiot for doubting him earlier, offered Kang a formal apology for underestimating his abilities, and invited him to dinner that night as a way to make amends. Kang smiled at the gesture, clearly pleased, and they shook hands firmly as Kang declared that he would be more than happy to attend. Then Kang asked, almost cautiously, if he could invite Lady Bella as well. Rex immediately agreed without even a second thought. Later that evening, they all found themselves in a noisy tavern, and I mean really noisy. The kind of place where you could barely hear yourself think. Bella was sitting there quickly emptying her glass like she was in some kind of competition with herself. Vanya and Kang exchanged worried glances and asked her why she was drinking so fast all by herself, urging her to slow down and actually chat with them like a normal person would. But Bella simply replied that she felt more comfortable this way, which honestly just disappointed both of them even more. Suddenly, a large miner bumped into Kang's shoulder, nearly knocking him off balance. The miner looked at him with wide, excited eyes and eagerly asked if Kang really extracted 200 pieces of ore and wasn't just lying about it to impress everyone. Kang confirmed it with a genuine laugh, assuring him that yes, he really did it. Word spread fast, and before he knew it, miners started gathering around him like he was some kind of celebrity. One of the workers pushed through the crowd and asked about the meteorite ore specifically. How many pieces of that rare stuff did he actually manage to get? Kang casually replied that he got about 20 pieces, and the entire group erupted in amazement at this absolutely incredible achievement. The worker then said he'd heard rumors about Kang's famous special axe and asked if he could see it with his own eyes. Kang agreed without hesitation and summoned his Damascus axe right there in the tavern. Kang proudly presented it to the fascinated miners, explaining that this was his Damascus axe and that it was a tool he'd made specifically for mining, every aspect of it designed with that single purpose in mind. He went on to explain that his axe enhanced mining power by over 200%, which was exactly what had enabled him to complete the seemingly impossible task Rex had given him. Then he enthusiastically added that it could also transform into a sword, and when it did, its rock-cutting ability improved even further, making it incredibly versatile and useful for all kinds of situations. Bella sat back and watched Kang as he talked so excitedly about the weapon he'd created, his eyes lighting up with genuine passion, and she thought to herself with a small smile that a blacksmith is still a blacksmith, no matter what world they're in. The miners surrounded Kang, practically drowning him in attention, and offered him a drink first, telling him warmly not to be a stranger anymore. The workers declared with big grins on their faces that Kang was now officially a miner and part of their crew. Kang couldn't help but laugh at their enthusiasm and thanked them all sincerely. Later, after the celebration had died down, Rex took Kang and Bella to another location deep within the mine system. He told them matter-of-factly that this was where the millennial meteorite ore was buried, the really valuable stuff they'd been searching for. Kang looked at the area with a confused expression and asked Rex if this was really the place he meant, because something seemed off about it. Kang pointed directly at the dungeon's magic barrier shimmering in front of them, and reminded Rex that he'd already told him earlier they couldn't enter because of it. Wasn't that what he said before? Rex nodded in agreement, completely unfazed, and confirmed that yes, the ore was inside that barrier. Right in there. Kang thought to himself that obviously he knew that already, but the place was absolutely full of monsters, dangerous ones too. So he asked Le if that was somehow normal. Like, was this just an everyday thing? Rex simply replied with a shrug that it was Kang's problem now, and he should figure out how to solve it himself. Very helpful. Kang asked in exasperation how they were even supposed to mine in there with all those monsters running around. Rex told them casually that he was heading to another nearby mine to check on things and that Kang could come find him anytime if he had questions. And with that, he started to turn and leave, like this was all perfectly normal. But as soon as Rex turned his back to walk away, a system window suddenly appeared right in front of Kang's face, startling him. The window announced in bold letters that a new story begins. Just like that, Kang stared at it in surprise and wondered what the hell it meant for a story to suddenly appear out of nowhere. Why now? A series of system messages started popping up one after another, explaining that 100 years had passed since the great wizard Fallon first placed this barrier, and over all that time the barrier had slowly weakened. The messages warned in urgent red text that the monsters who had been trapped inside for a full century had become absolutely enraged from their long imprisonment, and the barrier would completely break within 3 minutes. That was all the time they had. Kang's blood ran cold. He immediately turned around in pure terror and started running, shouting desperately at Rex to wait to stop walking away. Rex stopped in his tracks and turned back around, asking Kang what was happening and why he looked so panicked. Kang screamed at the top of his lungs that the barrier was about to break any second now, and that they needed to evacuate all the miners immediately. Every single one of them had to get out right now. Rex couldn't believe what he was hearing. He stood there wondering how a magical barrier that had stood strong for 100 years could just suddenly decide to break today of all days. But at that very moment, as if the universe wanted to prove Kang right, the entire mine began to shake violently beneath their feet. The ground trembled and the walls groaned. Rex, Kang, and Bella all looked around in absolute shock as the reality of the situation hit them. Rocks started falling from the ceiling, crashing down around them, and the mine began to collapse, section by section. Rex, immediately seeing the other miners scattered throughout the area, and now in terrible danger, shouted at the top of his lungs that the mine was collapsing. He ordered everyone to get out immediately. Run now. Another miner nearby agreed with Rex's decision and shouted for the others to go ahead first, insisting passionately that they couldn't just abandon their comrades and leave them behind to die. They just couldn't. Rex confirmed with a serious nod that they were absolutely right. He couldn't leave either, not while people were still trapped. He grabbed his trusty axe and gripped it tightly, guessing out loud that the ancient magic designed to collapse the mine in case of emergency had somehow been activated by the barrier breaking. He declared with determination that they would rescue everyone who was trapped, and only then would they evacuate together. No one gets left behind. But Kang stood there thinking frantically to himself that the magic probably wouldn't work correctly. What was he supposed to do? And right at that moment, a new quest window appeared in front of Kang. The system cheerfully explained that there were 58 people trapped inside and 38 outside in danger, making it a grand total of 96 living miners who were all counting on him now. And the rewards would depend on how many he could actually save. Kang gritted his teeth as he read this. He thought to himself that these NPCs sure talk boldly about rewards based on how many people survive, like they're just numbers on a scoreboard. But weren't these people just as real as those back in Ares? Weren't they living, breathing individuals with families and lives? Kang took a deep breath and summoned his sword, his hands gripping it tightly as he prepared himself for what was coming. He turned to Lady Bella and asked her to cover his back in case he missed any monsters. Just in case. Bella stared at him in amazement and asked if he wasn't scared at all. How was he so bravely stepping forward again, like this was just another Tuesday? Kang smiled at her concern and reminded her of something he'd said before. Strangers don't die. He'd made it this far, hadn't he? Then he announced his plan. He would block the dungeon entrance completely to prevent the monsters from spilling out and slaughtering everyone. Kang positioned himself firmly in front of the cracking barrier, and from behind it he could see them, the enraged stone monsters, pacing and snarling, waiting for their chance to break free. Kang stared at them and wondered to himself if his current power would really be enough to deal with all of them. He looked down at his Damascus sword and realized something that made his stomach drop. This sword alone wouldn't be enough. It just wouldn't. There were too many of them and they were too strong. So what was he supposed to do now? He needed a way to restrain their movement, something that could hit harder than anything he currently had. He needed something entirely new. That's when he decided to use emergency god crafting, pouring a massive amount of ore into creating a brand new, more powerful weapon right here on the spot. But as the thought crossed his mind, doubt crept in. Was using this skill, which he'd never actually tried before, really a good idea? What if it didn't work? What if he wasted all that ore for nothing? Still, he imagined that if he poured enough suitable ores into the emergency crafting, the effect would generate one devastating blow, something strong enough to turn the tide. Kang closed his eyes and focused every ounce of his concentration into the skill. Through sheer willpower and craftsmanship, he created a massive greatsword made of cold iron that gleamed with raw power as it materialized in his hands. At that exact moment, the countdown to the barrier's destruction began echoing in his ears. 3, 2, 1, and then the barrier shattered completely, exploding into fragments of light. Kang shouted at the top of his lungs, "Come on," as he braced himself and faced the horde of emerging monsters charging straight at him. They came in terrifying waves. A stone troll at level 113, its massive frame shaking the ground with each step. A stone orc at level 107, wielding a club bigger than Kang's entire body. And a stone wolf at level 110, its eyes glowing with hunger and rage. Kang quickly noted in his mind that this weapon he'd just crafted would disappear after just one use, one single strike, and it would be gone forever. But the ignore effect was active, which meant this one blow would count. Kang charged forward toward the monsters with his newly forged greatsword raised high, and he declared with absolute determination that as long as he stood guard at this entrance, not a single one of these monsters would get past him, not one. Kang continued his relentless attack with the great sword of cold iron, his muscles burning with effort as he leaped high into the air with everything he had. Kang unleashed the Frost Storm skill, and immediately a sweeping icy attack rushed forward with such overwhelming force that the ground itself seemed to tremble beneath it. The ice storm spread out in all directions, freezing the surrounding monsters solid where they stood, including a stone wolf that had been mid-leap trying to tear into Kang's throat. But after delivering this one enormous and devastating strike, something terrible happened. The great sword of cold iron in Kang's hands began to crack. Kang stood there holding nothing but the remaining hilt in his hand, staring at it in complete shock. He thought to himself that even though this weapon was only meant for emergency use, it had just proven to him something incredibly important. If he crafted a weapon with exactly the right materials and poured everything into it, it could possess this much devastating impact. The power had been real. But he quickly snapped back to reality and realized that the danger definitely hadn't passed yet. There were still so many monsters left inside this cursed gate, and they weren't going to just stand around and wait. His main concern immediately shifted to the workers scattered throughout the collapsing mine. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the collapsed sections of the mine, the miners were digging frantically with their bare hands and whatever tools they could find, determined to save their trapped colleagues no matter what it took. Voices rose urgently through the dusty air, demanding that everyone keep digging because there were injured people who desperately needed to be moved to safety. The workers were absolutely determined to save their comrades at any cost, even if it meant risking their own lives. Back where Kang stood, a system message appeared stating coldly that the reward would depend on the number of survivors, just a reminder that this was still a quest with numbers attached. Kang watched this scene unfold through the chaos around him, and clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white. He thought to himself with absolute certainty that the lives of these workers were no longer just NPC data to him. They reminded him so much of himself when he had risked everything to save his father, throwing caution to the wind because family mattered more than anything. These were real people sacrificing themselves to protect the ones they loved, their comrades, their families. They were human. With this new resolve burning in his chest, Kang positioned himself directly before the dungeon entrance that was still absolutely filled with monsters waiting to pour out. He was determined to protect these miners no matter what it cost him. The monsters inside sensed prey and immediately rushed toward him in a terrifying wave of stone and fury. But as Kang watched them charge, he quickly realized something critical. He couldn't fight them all here, not this close to where the workers were desperately trying to save lives. If he engaged them here, the battle would put everyone in danger. He made a split-second decision. He had to first lure these monsters away to another area of the dungeon, somewhere far from people. So he took off running at full speed to attract their attention, deliberately making himself the most obvious target possible. The plan worked perfectly. A large group of stone orcs and stone wolves immediately gave chase. Kang suddenly stopped running and turned around to face the charging horde. He drew his Damascus sword in one smooth motion. Then he engaged the monsters in what could only be described as a fierce and brutal fight, his body moving on pure instinct in all those hours of training. He skillfully dodged their massive blows that could have crushed him instantly, weaving between attacks by mere inches, and landed precise, devastating stabs directly to their faces and weak points whenever an opening appeared. Another giant stone monster was already aiming its enormous hammer straight at him, ready to turn him into paste. Kang prepared himself for a counterattack against the monster's brutal assault, his mind calculating the timing perfectly. At the last possible second, he swung his Damascus sword with all his strength and somehow managed to cut the monster's hammer cleanly in half. Then, while the monster stood there in shock, staring at its broken weapon, Kang delivered a devastating cutting blow that tore through the creature's body. The monster fell heavily to the ground with a thunderous crash, now nothing more than a lifeless corpse. But before Kang could even take a breath, he found himself suddenly surrounded by a completely new group of enemies that had emerged from deeper in the dungeon. He looked around at them all closing in and couldn't help but smile confidently, realizing with a surge of excitement that it was finally time to use his real skills, the ones he'd been saving. He thought to himself with genuine gratitude that he was so glad he'd taken the time to learn the Sword King's swordsmanship back when he had the chance. It was about to pay off big time. Kang activated the Raging Wave sword skill and immediately charged straight into the midst of his enemies without an ounce of hesitation. He unleashed an absolutely devastating whirlwind of rapid cuts, his strikes coming so fast they blurred together, turning into brilliant blue waves of energy that tore through the monsters like they were made of paper. Enemies fell all around him left and right, their bodies dissolving before they even hit the ground. A system message appeared in the corner of his vision, calmly explaining that this skill inflicted an additional 100% damage on normal hits, and that damage reached a staggering 140% when hitting vital points. Kang finally stopped his assault to catch his breath, and he thought to himself in amazement that this skill was way stronger than he had ever imagined it would be. The power was incredible. After finishing off the very last of the monsters with one final strike, Kang's legs gave out and he collapsed heavily to the ground, completely and utterly exhausted. As he lay there trying to catch his breath, system messages began appearing before his eyes one after another. The first message announced in formal text that the mine dungeon had been successfully completed. It was immediately followed by another message: all 96 workers had survived and that he had completed this new chapter with truly amazing results. But then a new system message appeared that by manipulating the situation cleverly, he could potentially obtain a much larger reward from the mine chief Rex than what he'd normally get. He rose slowly and carefully from the ground. Kang thought to himself that honestly, just protecting everyone and making sure they all survived felt like reward enough in itself. He'd saved lives and that mattered. But at the same time, he couldn't exactly ignore an offer of getting a larger reward either. Right? That would just be stupid. He thought with growing excitement that he'd just had a great idea. Meanwhile, Rex was carefully carrying his injured companion out of the rubble. He stood before all the gathered survivors, that every single one of them was safe and unharmed. Nobody had been lost. Pure joy erupted among the exhausted miners like a dam breaking. They embraced each other tightly. As the workers celebrated their miraculous survival, Bella was moving carefully among them. Bella quickly approached Rex and told him quietly that it seemed like Mr. Kang had lured the monsters away on purpose and entered the dungeon completely alone. Rex announced to every single one of them that Kang the Blacksmith, in order to protect them all, had lured the monsters away by himself and entered the dungeon alone to face them. Just him, nobody else. The news hit the workers like a physical blow and they immediately fell silent. This explained why they hadn't seen a single monster during the entire collapse. Kang had drawn them all away on purpose. Rex gripped his axe so tightly as their leader he felt intense shame burning in his chest. How could he have forgotten about the man who saved them all? He immediately ordered all miners who could still walk to grab whatever weapons they had and follow him into the dungeon right now, this instant. Their voices rising as one as they announced their agreement. The hastily assembled rescue party led by Rex and Bella at the front grabbed torches to light their way and set off into the dark, dangerous mine without hesitation. They began calling out at the top of their voices, shouting the blacksmith's name desperately. Their voices echoed off the stone walls as they continued searching. The worker yelled that he'd found him. He pointed to a figure sitting on the ground. Everyone immediately ran toward him anxiously. Bella arrived first and immediately squatted down beside him to check on his condition. She was genuinely surprised by what she felt. His heart rate was somehow perfectly stable and normal. Bella stood up slowly to reassure all the worried workers crowding around them, telling them calmly to settle down and that Mr. Kang was actually... But before she could finish her sentence and reveal that he was perfectly fine, Kang suddenly reached up and grabbed her arm firmly. He whispered urgently for her to be quiet and wait just a moment. Kang slowly struggled to get up. He reassured everyone gathered around him that he was fine. Then he looked directly at Rex. Was everyone safe? Had they all made it out? Rex immediately grabbed Kang's hands. He thanked Kang so warmly and sincerely that he kept berating himself harshly, saying that all he'd offered Kang was nothing but some food and drink. Kang replied quietly that they had all treated him and Lady Bella like family from the very beginning. Rex, Bella, and all the gathered miners looked at him with deeply moved expressions. He'd wanted to help in whatever way he possibly could. He concluded by saying that he felt truly grateful everyone was safe and sound, and then he gave a light cough to really sell his exhausted act. Rex looked at him with tears streaming down his weathered face, and called Kang a foolish but incredibly brave friend. Then Rex suddenly shouted enthusiastically they would never ever forget the incredible kindness shown by Kang the blacksmith. Meanwhile, Bella sat off to the side in complete and utter confusion. Rex carefully helped Kang up to his feet. He ordered them to carry their savior inside quickly so he could rest properly. A system window suddenly appeared before Kang's eyes. Mine Chief Rex and all 95 workers would never forget what he'd done for them. Kang was thinking to himself when things had gone exactly as he'd planned. His brilliant idea to make the entire situation seem way more dramatic had been a complete success. Bella watched the whole scene unfold with an increasingly skeptical eye, as she observed Rex helping Kang walk like he was on death's door. Kang surprised her by giving her a quick cheeky thumbs up when nobody else was looking, basically confirming her suspicions entirely. In the end, she thought furiously to herself, he was just a scammer this whole time, a con artist. Later, after getting some much-needed rest, commenting out loud with satisfaction that he'd slept really well. But his peaceful morning was immediately interrupted when Banya burst through the door without warning. Banya asked him breathlessly how long he'd been awake, barely giving him time to answer. Before Kang could even respond properly, Banya had already turned around and was shouting to everyone waiting outside that Kang was finally awake. Rex suddenly rushed into the room with concern written all over his face and asked Kang anxiously about his current condition. Was he feeling any better than yesterday? Kang confirmed that yes, he was completely fine now, and then asked in return just to make absolutely sure that everyone else was safe and accounted for. Rex told him warmly that yes, they were all perfectly fine, and then insisted firmly that Kang should really worry about his own body first instead of everyone else for once. Then Rex seemed to remember something important and mentioned that he knew Kang had said he would be leaving the mine soon, being a traveling blacksmith and all. Rex hesitated for a moment, looking almost uncomfortable, and admitted that this might not be the absolute best timing for this conversation, but he wanted to clarify that there was something important he needed to tell Kang before he left. His curiosity piqued and told Rex to please speak freely. Rex turned toward the still open door and called out for everyone who was waiting outside to come into the room. The miners came streaming into the room, and Rex announced that today they'd be mining just for him. And of course he repeated it back in complete disbelief. Rex explained that after he risked his life to protect them, they wanted to repay his kindness. So they promised him they'd extract that millennial cold iron he'd been searching for. He asked, clearly moved, if they'd really do all that for him. Rex confirmed it. Of course they would. He smiled, saying he only did what was right, but he thanked them anyway. He figured that was everything Rex wanted to say. But then Rex smiled and glanced behind him, signaling for everyone to leave. And then Rex added, hesitantly, that there was actually one more thing. He thought it'd be better if his son Banya said it himself. Banya looked extremely nervous, stammering like crazy. After gathering whatever courage he had, Banya called out to him, then quickly corrected himself and said, Savior. Banya introduced himself as a miner, then suddenly bowed deeply, asking to follow him. And of course, system messages started popping up while Banya was still kneeling there. The messages announced that Banya swears eternal loyalty, that he has potential to become a legendary miner, and that he can accept him as a follower. He was shocked, repeating follower to himself. Follower? Really? The scene suddenly cut to the VIP user management team. A female employee sat there panicking, wondering why this was happening now. And of course the manager was away. She screamed that player Kang had done it again. She kept shouting, pointing at her screen. How was this even possible? He wasn't a guild leader. He didn't own any territory. The employee collapsed onto her desk, pulling her hair. A legendary tier NPC wanted to become his follower. This meant another long night. Back to him. He asked Banya to stand up, trying to convince him he wasn't that amazing. But Banya refused. Banya insisted. He'd seen it with his own eyes. The way he used that Damascus axe for mining, amazing, and how he sacrificed himself to save them all, both amazing and moving. Banya told him seriously that this was what made him respect him. Banya promised he'd swing his pickaxe for him, mine for him. He begged once more to be accepted as his servant. He looked at Banya, realizing he wasn't just saying this lightly. The kid was serious. Banya asked anxiously. If Kang was rejecting him because he didn't have enough skills yet, was that it? Was he not good enough? Kang quickly denied that, shaking his head firmly. He explained carefully that the problem really wasn't Banya at all. It was him. Kang himself just wasn't qualified to lead anyone right now, not in his current position. Kang held out his hand to Banya and told him earnestly that when he was finally ready and had everything set up, he would personally send a messenger to find Banya wherever he was. He wouldn't forget. Banya's eyes immediately lit up with hope as he understood exactly what Kang meant. Kang smiled warmly at him and asked Banya to officially join him as his follower. Banya practically jumped for joy right there, bouncing on his feet as he thanked Kang over and over again with genuine warmth and excitement. A system message appeared, confirming in formal text that Kang had successfully accepted Banya as his follower. Banya couldn't contain himself and hugged Kang tightly in a crushing embrace. A large information window suddenly appeared, revealing everything about his new follower. It showed that Banya was an epic grade follower at level 165, and that he had extremely high growth potential for the future. Kang couldn't help but smile as he processed all this information, realizing with satisfaction that thanks to Banya's genuine sincerity and loyalty, he had just gained himself a truly powerful ally, and all that remained now was for both of them to grow strong together over time. Rex watched the entire heartwarming scene unfold with a gentle smile on his weathered face. The scene shifted to outside the mine entrance, where Kang and the other miners were now standing near a glowing blue magical portal that would take them back. System messages began appearing rapidly in Kang's vision, informing him matter-of-factly that he had obtained a total of 415 iron ore and 51 pieces of cold iron from this entire adventure. Rex approached Kang slowly, telling him that he'd been waiting for the right moment to show him something special. Rex gestured dramatically toward what he'd been hiding and revealed an absolutely massive pile of glowing blue ore that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. He announced with pride in his voice that this right here was the legendary millennial cold iron they'd been searching for all along. Kang just stared in absolute awe at the massive pile of incredibly rare ore in front of him. Bella leaned in close and whispered to him teasingly that he must feel very proud of himself after succeeding in achieving something this impressive. Kang immediately asked her to please lower her voice, warning her nervously that the miners standing nearby might misunderstand if she talked to him that way. Meanwhile, Rex approached Kang with slow, deliberate steps and expressed his deepest gratitude. Kang smiled back at him with quiet confidence and satisfaction, accepting the praise gracefully. He and Bella finally stepped toward the glowing portal that would take them away from the mine, and Kang turned to thank all the miners sincerely for everything they'd done for him during his time here. Banya suddenly came rushing after them from behind, actually crying as he called out Kang's name desperately. Kang stopped and turned around in response to Banya's emotional call. Kang reached into his inventory and presented Banya with his special Damascus axe. This axe was specifically programmed so that the more Banya mined with it, the more minerals Kang would automatically receive as his cut of whatever Banya found. It was basically a passive income generator. Banya stared at the axe in his hands with extreme surprise. Banya was immediately overcome with powerful emotion and declared that he would follow Kang loyally for the rest of his entire life. In the background behind them, the other miners continued their loud celebration. As they finally stepped through the shimmering portal together, Kang found himself thinking about something Bella had said earlier. She'd called him a scammer, which, okay, was maybe a little bit fair, but despite that accusation, he had genuinely risked his own life to save all the miners when the dungeon collapsed. That part had been real. Bella suddenly spoke up, telling him somewhat reluctantly that what he'd done back there was actually a little cool. Kang stopped in his tracks, genuinely surprised by the unexpected compliment. He asked her in complete amazement if she had just said cool, like actually used that word, and asked for confirmation that she was definitely talking about him and not someone else. A few days later, the scene shifted to a completely different location, the Salamander's Den. Inside this hellish environment, Hyuksu, the wealthy real estate investor, sat alone in absolute despair. He let out a long, defeated sigh and cursed his terrible luck out loud. Hyuksu thought bitterly to himself that even the 11th ranked blacksmith couldn't manage to craft the specific fire-resistant armor. What was he supposed to do now? He suddenly noticed a messenger bird flying toward him through the heat and smoke. The bird landed directly in front of him. Suddenly, a system message appeared right before his eyes, informing him in cheerful text that someone named Kang had sent him a gift. Hyuksu repeated Kang's name out loud in genuine surprise, the name triggering his memory. He thought back, remembering that Kang was that blacksmith guy he'd met briefly, but he was still only around level 59 the last time they'd talked, right? He decided with mild curiosity to see what the gift actually was, and pressed the accept button on the glowing system window floating in front of him. The gift window appeared and materialized before his eyes, and Hyuksu's expression immediately shifted to complete confusion. His eyes widened dramatically in absolute shock as he read what the system was showing him, and he found himself wondering out loud what the hell this was. Was this some kind of bug in the system? This couldn't be real. The gift materialized in front of Hyuksu, a shield, and of course a system window appeared showing all its details. Kang's custom-made shield, unique grade with 12,000 durability and 251 attack power. Hyuksu grabbed the shield, It felt solid in his hands. He stared at it and muttered out loud, "Kang, your skills are way beyond what I thought." He examined the shield more carefully. There was a face carved into it. This was Medusa, the woman with snakes for hair. Hyuksu realized what Kang had done. He'd used the Aegis as inspiration for this, and just like that, he'd done it. This shield was truly a masterpiece. At the same time, the system panel popped up with its usual cold announcement. Time remaining to complete the quest, 1 hour 37 minutes 32 seconds. He stood up, hands on his hips, admiring his work. "But you really keep surprising me, don't you?" He gripped the shield tightly, excitement bubbling up inside him. Who knows? With this shield I might actually be able to finish conquering this dungeon. And of course, the moment he did, the system had to chime in again. "You have entered the Salamander's dungeon. This is the final trial of the hidden quest." Back at the magnificent palace, sunbeams still shone as brightly as ever. In one of the grand rooms, a girl with long flowing hair smiled warmly. "Thanks to you, Kang, I got to visit the royal reception room of the Goyard Kingdom." Kang responded politely. "It was thanks to Bella's help that I was able to do it. And after returning from the ice mine, I stayed home to take care of my sick father." Caring for a sick person is really not an easy task. The girl asked with concern, "Has your father's illness gotten any better?" He lowered his eyes slightly. "He hasn't woken up yet, but I absolutely will not give up hope." Very quickly she changed her tone and switched the topic. "We were supposed to talk about the guild today." The girl pulled out a few sheets of paper covered in writing and slid them across the table. He picked them up and started reading. Of course, the girl didn't waste any time and began explaining seriously. "My immediate goal? Make you Kang the most famous blacksmith in the entire country. And here's the thing. If we start the guild with people who have too large of a level gap, it'll be very difficult for us to achieve what we want." Kang looked up a bit confused. "Wait, our goal is to make me the most famous blacksmith?" The girl crossed her legs and sat up straight. "Listen, the fastest way for a guild to grow and gain fame is to create a star for the guild. So are you thinking of anyone who could be a founding member?" He shook his head. "No, not really." He stared at the plans on the paper, deep in thought. Kang rubbed his chin, thinking hard. "Well, there's the friend who introduced me to this game." He crossed his arms and bowed his head, thinking for what felt like forever. But even after all that thinking, he still couldn't come up with a solid answer. Kang scratched his head awkwardly. The girl smiled gently. "It's okay. We can start building those relationships from now on." Suddenly Kang's eyes lit up. He practically shouted, "Ah, wait, there's one more person." The girl, already tapping away at her screen, asked casually, "What's that person's player name?" Kang replied quickly, "His name is Bark." The girl paused her searching and looked up. "This is the first time I've heard this name. What's his approximate level?" Kang stammered a bit. Come to think of it, besides his player name I haven't really asked anything else." The girl's expression shifted. "Kang, this is a founding member we're talking about here. And you're recommending someone with basically no information?" Kang went quiet for a moment, remembering everything that had happened. "But he's the person who, when I was at the end of my rope, gave up his own interest just to help me start over," he said softly. "He's someone I'm really grateful for." The girl raised an eyebrow. "His own interests?" Kang nodded. "Yes, exactly." The girl leaned back in her chair. "Could it be that this person is a businessman?" Kang looked up in surprise. "How did you know?" "Yes, that's right." The girl shook her head. "It seems you don't realize it, Kang, but your value in Aries is far beyond imagination," she said. "Who knows? That person might use you, Kang, to do business in Aries. And to make things worse, it's also possible that person will take the position of guild leader." These words made him pause for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. He would never do that. Kang looked up at her. "Seriously, he is absolutely not the type of person who would deceive me." His firm assertion made the girl freeze for a moment. The girl let out a sigh. "Whether or not to accept him as a guild member, your decision, Kang, is the most important." But then the girl suddenly slammed her hand on the table and exclaimed excitedly, "Kang, let me meet him, please." Kang had no intention of refusing. "All right," she reminded him. "From now until then, the fact that you, Kang, are the blacksmith Hang Yun-soo, you must try to keep it a secret." His eyes went wide. "The gift I recently gave him, I already added the name Hang Yun-soo to it." Hearing this, the girl couldn't help but scream. "You what?" At that very moment, inside the Salamander's dungeon, columns of fire rose and fell everywhere. Monster after monster charged out, continuously attacking the outsider. Bark gritted his teeth, gripping the shield tightly in his hand. He swept it across the monster, seriously injuring it. The monster that got hit by the skill staggered back, its eyes becoming blurry, losing all focus. Immediately after, a large explosion erupted in the sky, creating a powerful pillar of fire. Bark looked at the shield in his hand and exclaimed in awe, "This is amazing. I can't believe all the features I wanted are actually working." Suddenly, his eyes fell upon the inner face of the shield. Bark asked curiously, "What's this?" The moment he saw the familiar name carved on the inside, Bark exclaimed in utter shock, "Unbelievable. It really is you, Kang." He closed his eyes and smiled. "I really don't know how many more times Kang is going to surprise me. How can I ever repay him?" Lost in his thoughts, he didn't notice a monster ambushing him from behind. Just as the monster was about to strike, he finally noticed it. But Bark couldn't counterattack at all. He could only take the full force of the blow. And of course he was sent flying, slamming hard into the wall in the distance. The monster's eyes suddenly lit up. Oh, it definitely wasn't done yet. It lunged forward, relentlessly going after Bark. Explosion after explosion rang out, rocks flying everywhere like confetti. And to make things worse, streams of lava started churning all around them. The humanoid monster stood there admiring its fiery handiwork, watching intently. But suddenly, its pupils contracted in shock. Right there, standing tall and protected by that sturdy shield, was Bark, still alive. The monster was immediately intrigued. So you actually blocked my attack. Interesting. Now tell me who's the one who created that thing. And of course, as it spoke, it launched another attack at him. Bark quickly dashed to another spot, barely dodging it. Attack after attack rained down on him. But Bark gripped the shield tightly, skillfully avoiding every single one. The monster's tone turned darker. If you don't talk, not only will I hunt you down, but my original body will too. Bark looked at the monster and gritted his teeth. If its original body comes after me, I might actually have to quit this game. With that thought, he jumped up high, trying to ambush it from above. The monster felt challenged. It swung its massive arm, launching a devastating skill straight at Bark. You don't seem to fear death, do you? Bark used the shield to block the onslaught. He smirked. Is that all you've got? Suddenly, the system notification rang out like a death sentence. The Fire Queen's body deploys Hand of Death. And just like that, a powerful attack bypassed his shield entirely, hitting Bark directly with the full force of the skill. The monster sneered contemptuously. You dare to die for a measly little artifact? Another system notification rang out coldly. HP remaining 33. But at this moment, Bark only had one thought burning in his mind. It's not a measly artifact. He leaned over, looking at the shield still completely intact in his hand. Every moment, every memory of his time with Kang flashed through his mind like a movie. This shield, it's responding to my will. It's a gift my friend made specifically for me. The moment that thought solidified in his mind, Bark suddenly felt a surge of energy like getting a second wind. His willpower created a blinding light that exploded into the sky, making the monster exclaim in pure shock. Bark materialized a spear out of nowhere and got into his stance, ready to finally counterattack. And naturally, the system chimed in with perfect timing. Hidden skill, Aegis Frost has been activated. The monster at this point was absolutely enraged and roared. You think you can beat me with these pathetic little tricks? The system immediately displayed an urgent notification. Warning, the clone is preparing a powerful spell. Bark, using every ounce of strength he had, threw the spear straight at the monster. One direct hit right to the middle of the monster's forehead. The aftershock of the attack only now began to erupt, causing the surrounding ground to crack and split apart. The system immediately announced a string of rewards. You have defeated the Fire Queen's clone. Class change quest complete. Conquer the Salamander's dungeon. Obtained Fire Dragon armor set. A series of large explosions erupted all around him, forcing Bark to dash away at full speed just to avoid being blown to bits. The moment the monster's corpse finally collapsed, Bark successfully dodged the last explosion. He stood there panting, looking at the notification glowing on the system screen. Hidden piece? Complete the hidden qualification test? Bark asked himself. A qualification test? There's that too. And just like that, a game notification popped up right in front of Bark's eyes. The system had been watching everything. It stated that Bark didn't reveal his teammate's name, even when his teammate was literally in extreme danger, on the verge of dying. And because of this one decision, Bark receives a brand new title. He's now officially qualified as a growing one. But wait, that's not all. Right after that, another notification appeared. This one was about Bark. The system announced that Bark is the perfect choice to become a tanker. He has absolutely no weaknesses of any kind. Because of this, Bark's class completely changes right there on the spot. He becomes an epic class player. Now this title, this isn't something just anyone gets. It's a special class of growing one that's awarded only to those who protect others, who put their lives on the line for their teammates. Seeing all of this unfold, Bark couldn't help but smile. His face lit up as he thought to himself, the dungeon was designed exactly this way for a reason. Bark realized that this entire dungeon quest, all the struggles, all the near-death moments, it was meant specifically for his job change. Everything had led to this exact moment. Right after that, Bark receives another game system notification. This time it's telling him that he hasn't joined any guild yet. And of course the game highly recommends that he should join one. Like it's basically nudging him to get with the program. Bark thinks for a moment, processing this information, and then a smile slowly spreads across his face. The scene then shifts. Many people are sitting around, drinking, laughing, enjoying themselves. Suddenly the tavern gate swings open, and in walks Bark. And let me tell you, the armor he's wearing, it's shining so brightly that it practically lights up the entire room. As Bark starts walking toward Kang's table, all the people in the tavern just keep staring at his armor. Even Nell, who's sitting at the table, looks at Bark very carefully. She's sizing him up, thinking to herself that judging by his armor alone, this guy must be a seriously strong player. Bark finally reaches Kang's table and says with genuine gratitude, "Kang, thank you very much." But just as he's saying this, Nell suddenly interrupts and says, "Mr. Bark." Bark stops mid-sentence, looks at Nell with a confused expression, and wonders, wait, who is she? And just like that, the three of them begin talking among themselves, exchanging introductions. Bark smiles warmly, then pulls out some money, hands it to the staff nearby and says, "Let's talk somewhere private, shall we?" After that, the scene shifts again. Now they're sitting in a room inside a very large and luxurious palace. We're talking top-tier stuff here. Bark then looks at Kang and says, "Kang, I also saw that shield you gave me, and it had Kang written on it. Are you that famous blacksmith Kang? The legendary one everyone talks about?" After that, Bark says, "Kang, could you come a little closer? I want to tell you something." Kang stands up from his table and steps forward. Bark places his hand on Kang's shoulder and says, "Thank you. I knew you were an incredible guy from that very day. And you know, when I was in the dungeon boss cornered me and asked who gave me this artifact. And I simply said, it was my friend who gave it to me as a gift. Didn't say your name." Hearing this, Kang's face lights up. He's extremely happy. After that, Nell stands up and says, "I am Kang's manager. Please give me your answer. And if I'm wrong, forgive me in advance. Are you trying to use Kang's skill to succeed in the game?" Bark laughs and says, No, it's fine. You were absolutely right to think that way." And of course he explains why. Because the game is full of people who are so greedy. They'd want to form a guild with Kang just to use him and advance themselves, but I'm not like that. Nell smiles, happy to hear this, but Kang asks why. Bark looks at Kang and says, "Because I want to grow together with you. We'll enjoy our time along the way." Saying this, Kang and Bark hug each other. They're both grinning. Nell is standing beside them, smiling at the wholesome scene. After that, Bark says, "From today onward, Kang, I will always protect you." Then he extends his hand. "Now it's time to introduce myself. My name is Bark. My level is 301 and my class is Growing Tanker." Then, Bark says to Kang, "If you're that famous, Kang, then you must be a legendary class too, right?" Kang replies, "All right, now it's my turn." He straightens up. "My name is Kang, I'm level 80 and my class is God of Blacksmith." Hearing this, Bark's jaw drops. He's completely shocked. After that, Bark and Kang shake hands and say, "Let's form a guild together and grow." Bark even calls Kang the future master. Nell becomes very happy hearing all this. After that, the three of them continue enjoying their meal. Suddenly, a holographic screen opens. It shows that Bark is going to make a payment to Kang for the gift. Kang waves his hands. No, there's no need for that." But at that moment, Kang checks his notification. His eyes go wide. They stay open in shock. Bark has sent him 400 million. Then Bark asks Kang, "Have you thought about how you'll run the guild? What's the plan going forward?" Nell jumps in. "Yes, our very first goal is to make Kang the most famous blacksmith." Bark nods and asks Nell, "All right, so what should we do for that? Should we finally start revealing our items to the public?" Hearing this, Kang is shocked. His eyes go wide and he says, "On the broadcast channel? Are you guys seriously joking?" He looks at both of them like they've lost their minds. But Bark and Nell look at Kang seriously. Their faces show they mean business. They say, "This is no joke. You will have to go." Meanwhile, the scene shifts, and we all are revealed that Ares has become a global hit game, like Massive. In Purum Corporation, they've signed agreements with many broadcasters. Because of this, not only TV networks are involved, but internet stations are too. One of the most famous internet broadcasting channels is called AJ. Last time, they even broke the record for the highest viewer count. They're that big. Then we're shown the AJ Broadcast Registration Office. A broadcast is about to begin. All the staff members are running around extremely nervous. They're wondering what will happen today and how the show will go. Their hands are shaking. And why? Because today is the biggest day for them. Their broadcast is about to feature the most famous blacksmith in the entire game. The station is buzzing with energy, busy preparing for the broadcast. Gaming notifications start appearing everywhere, announcing that the broadcast will begin soon and that it'll be shot in the Room of Truth. With that, the broadcast begins. The host appears on screen and introduces the show to the viewers. He says with excitement, "Everyone, get excited. Today's guest is the most famous player in Ares." After that, he asks the viewers a question to hype them up even more. What are you most curious about? Do you want to see his real appearance? Or are you more interested in knowing his height and weight? Then he smiles and says, "Let's not waste any more time." With that, Kang steps forward and sits in the broadcast room chair. And here's the shocking thing. Kang's level, not visible. His height, not visible. His weight, not visible. Everything about him appears mysterious. Question marks are hovering over all his stats. The host welcomes him warmly, and Kang greets him back politely. But seeing question marks over all of Kang's personal details, the fans watching are extremely shocked. The chat explodes. They start sending messages asking whether this is some kind of glitch. And another thing, Kang looks very handsome, like surprisingly handsome. Seeing him, people in the chat are shocked. They're typing things like, wait, Kang is actually very good looking in real life? They weren't expecting this. Then suddenly, another notification appears in the broadcast chat. It says that Blacksmith Rawoon has donated 500 million won. Seeing this massive donation, the fans are even more shocked than before. The chat goes absolutely crazy. They start messaging excitedly asking, is that really Rawoon? They become extremely excited, saying things like, oh my god, is he also watching Kang's interview? Seeing all of this unfold, the question marks, the comments, Rawoon's donation, Kang is left completely stunned. He just sits there, frozen. Seeing the old man, all three of them were startled. The old man looked at them and asked, who are you people and why have you come here? Hearing this, Kang replied, we are outsiders. His Majesty King Barad sent us. When the old man still seemed unsure, Kang showed him King Barad's royal decree. The old man remained inside the gate. Seeing his hesitation, Kang carefully placed the royal decree near the doorway and said, we will step back, please check it properly. With that, Kang stepped back. The old man picked up the decree and read it inside. After reading it carefully, the old man came out and said, it is true, you really were sent by His Majesty King Barad. It has been a very long time since I last saw an outsider. Saying this, he stepped outside the gate and introduced himself as Lord's personal blacksmith. Kang then asked the old man, why are most of the forges in your village shut down and left in darkness? Did something happen? The old man replied, yes, about a year ago, when the Enroll company's storm struck this village, everything changed. He then added, this is a very long story. Do you want to hear it? The old man explained that even the Enroll company had heard rumors about blacksmiths in this territory. Because of those rumors, they came here to investigate as well. They approached them very kindly and suggested that they form a trade agreement with them. Their lord also wanted blacksmith weapons to become more popular, so she gladly accepted their offer. In this way, the Enroll company naturally settled in their village. One day, while their lord was having her afternoon meal, she made a grave mistake. She was very young and innocent, so she took the matter too lightly and accepted their proposal without proper consideration. The result was drastic and tragic. Their lord lost that bet, and with it all her authority was stripped away. That was the beginning of the tyranny of the Enroll company. Because of this, many blacksmiths fled the village. Those who were caught while trying to escape were enslaved. This was the painful story behind everything that happened here. Hearing this tragic tale, Kang became furious. He said, they didn't just trick and exploit people, they took everything from them. I will never forgive them for this. Kang then asked the old man, where were you when all of this happened? The old man replied, on the day our lord was defeated, she sent me away from this place. She told me that one day I must win that wager and save all the blacksmiths. Hearing this, Bark asked the old man, sir, if the Lord trusted you so much, then why didn't you? The old man fell silent in thought. Then he said, Books is a vile man, but his skills are real. I cannot run from him. He is looking for me, and soon he will find me. He added, thank you for listening to my story. With that, the old man turned to leave and said, do not involve yourselves in this. Leave this place. Kang stood up and said firmly, sir, I am very serious. I truly want to help you. I cannot sit quietly and watch this injustice happen. The old man responded, I am grateful for your words, but every blacksmith who came here before you. Before he could finish, a voice suddenly echoed through the room. Oh, so you were all hiding here. Bark and Nell were shocked. The old man was terrified. A man stepped in through the doorway. His presence was overwhelming. You can't run anymore. That man was none other than Books, the blacksmith examiner of the Enroll company. He looked at the old man and said, this time you will accept the Enroll company's wager. Then Books' gaze shifted to Kang, Bark and Nell. Oh, so you formed a new gang? As he said this, Books pulled out a glowing cube-like object in his hand. The cube's glow was so intense that it illuminated the entire room. After that, Books said, this is forged within a dream. It is based on the knowledge, judgment, and experience stored in your mind. The moment you see it, you will understand. Nell's mouth remained wide open in shock. She said, this is completely unreasonable. Bark also spoke up. This isn't a wager, this is blackmail. The old man's level was 230, while Book's level was 299. The gap between them was massive, so large that it made no sense for this to be called a fair challenge. Books then said coldly, and if you lose, you will become my slave for the rest of your life. With those words, the examination began. A notification appeared in front of them, stating that if the participant failed the examination, they would be forced to move forward with the terms. Hearing this, the old man fell deep into thought. He realized that he could no longer back out. If he won, the wager between the Lord and the blacksmith faction would be completely cancelled. Everything depended on this moment. As he thought this through, he understood that his entire life now depended on the outcome of this examination. Everything was on the line. Books said to the old man, do you have any idea how much effort it took for me to track you down? Stop wasting time. Pick up your hammer and get to work. You remember the rules. Whoever forges the better sword wins. The old man replied, thank you very much. Kang fell silent in thought. He released the old man's hand. The old man picked up his hammer and began forging the sword. As he worked, Nell, Bark, and Kang watched closely. The old man was already exhausted. Sweat dripped down his face, yet his hands did not stop. He continued hammering the blade, sharpening it again and again. He kept repeating to himself that this must be the greatest sword of his life. After pounding the blade countless times, he heated it in the furnace, melting and reforging it. He continued working relentlessly. But just as he was still struggling, Book suddenly finished his sword. Already, Book's sword was flawless. Showing it to the old man, Book said proudly, "Look, my sword is already complete. No blacksmith can find a single flaw in it." He smirked. "This isn't just a sword, it's my masterpiece." The old man was shocked. Did he already finish his sword? Then I've lost. His thoughts spiraled. My sword isn't even complete yet. I will die soon, and with my death, this lord's story will end as well. This must be my end. At that moment, Kang shouted loudly from behind, "Grandfather, focus. I believe in you. I know you can forge a far greater and more powerful sword." Kang began giving him advice, tips to help him create a stronger and more magnificent blade. Kang said, "If you increase the furnace temperature just a little more, you can still win." The old man hesitated. Could this child really be right? Seeing Kang's confidence, the old man was stunned. How can this boy trust me so much? As the old man looked at Kang, a game notification appeared before him. It stated that he was receiving guidance from a master blacksmith. The old man was left in shock. He wondered, "Who are you?" At the same time, inside the game development lab, all the coworkers were watching Kang's teaching in real time. One of the coworkers looked frustrated and said, "I put in so much effort creating that NPC, I don't know why he had to run into Kang." The person sitting beside him asked, "Wasn't he just a normal NPC?" The coworker shook his head and revealed, "No, he wasn't a normal NPC at all. He was meant to become the 11th future legend of the entire continent." The girl next to him was shocked. "Really?" The coworker continued. "It's not always necessary for legends to be heroes. I was planning to introduce a new villain into the game, that's why I created books." She responded, "Oh, I see." She then turned toward their boss and said, "Honestly, I don't think there's any problem if he gets involved with Kang, right?" The boss replied thoughtfully, "I don't know. We have no idea what Kang will do next." He added, "We can't interfere, all we can do is watch." The coworker nodded and said, "Then let's see what Kang does now." Back in the game, when the old man saw the master blacksmith guidance notification, he was stunned and asked, "A master?" From behind, Kang spoke, "Don't quench it in water, use quenching oil instead." He continued, "And when you polish the sword, apply pressure. Proper pressure is essential." Back into the game, Books lifted his sword and said confidently, "It's ready." At the same time, the old man also lifted his sword and said, "My sword is ready as well." Seeing this, Kang said calmly, "They both finished their swords at the same time." Now the system began evaluating both swords. The old man's sword turned out to be no ordinary weapon. It was a legendary sword. Seeing this, everyone present was shocked. Nell said in disbelief, "This is an incredible sword, one that anyone would admire." Someone pointed out that if you compared their levels, the old man should never have been able to win, but because of Kang's teaching, the old man emerged victorious. Seeing this, Books became furious. "This is impossible." A system notification appeared, announcing that the old man had won the challenge. The old man was overwhelmed with joy. He said that he was happy that before dying he was able to forge such a magnificent sword. At the same time, with Book's defeat, all the blacksmiths in the Balas territory were granted freedom. Seeing this, the old man became extremely emotional. Along with that, the agreement made with the Lord was also nullified. But Books shouted angrily, "You outsider, because of you I lost this evolution." He stepped forward, raised his sword, pointed it at Kang and said, "I challenge you to an evolution challenge." With that, the evolution began, and a notification appeared in front of Kang. Watching this challenge, the people in the game lab grabbed their heads in panic. "Books, don't do this, please don't do this." The female worker beside them said. So in the end, Books really challenged Kang. She then asked, "Who do you think will win when Kang and Books face off?" One of them grabbed Team Leader Kim and asked the same question, and Team Leader Kim responded, "If you look at Kang's track record, there is a 0% chance that Books can defeat him." The female worker teased, "Yeah, definitely 0%. Because Kang was not someone who could be judged by level alone. His skill was on a completely different scale." Back in the game, Kang was ready to accept Books' challenge. Kang carefully examined Books' sword and realized that sword itself is the problem. Books sneered and said, "If you fail this evolution, I will cut off one of your arms." Books had no idea whom he was challenging, and under what kind of terms. Kang became serious and replied, "My condition is your sword." Books laughed. "Good, very good." With that, the evolution began. Speed crafting mode. Books declared, "We'll decide this with speed crafting. Using standard blacksmith knowledge and experience, we must craft something in just a few seconds." In his mind, Books thought that a blacksmith like Kang must have never even heard of such a technique. Looking at Kang, he mocked him. He added confidently, It should be at least unique grade. As soon as he said that, the glowing material in his hand began to shine even brighter. At the same moment, the diamond in Kang's hand started glowing intensely. Its light was so powerful that the entire room lit up. Books panicked. What is that? It felt as if Kang was about to create something legendary. In just 1 second, Kang forged a massive sword from the diamond. Not an ordinary blade, but a legendary grade sword. Books is stunned. How did he finish before me and create a legendary sword? With that, Books lost the evolution. The ownership of the sword in his hand was automatically transferred, and it now belonged to Kang. Kang said calmly, without your sword you won't be able to use that filthy power again. Books shouted. My sword? Kang continued. Now I'm going to punish you for the crimes you committed. Books collapsed to the ground in disbelief. This can't be happening. Kang placed his sword against Books' neck and said, confess your crimes with this filthy mouth of yours. Terrified, Books began confessing. I imposed a 70% tax. I enslaved blacksmiths who couldn't pay. Kang asked sharply, did you imprison the Lord as well? Books replied, I had to. As a merchant guild leader, I did it for profit. Hearing this, the old man standing nearby exploded in rage. You imprisoned our Lord and exploited the lives of blacksmiths. These are unforgivable crimes. Books said weakly, I hid him in the basement of the merchant guild building. Kang asked, anything else? Books replied, no, that's everything. As he said this, Books tried to grab his sword again. You think I'll surrender this easily? Kang responded coldly. Borrowed Sword Art. Chapter 2. A long sword appeared in Kang's hand, wrapped in raging energy. Using it, he deflected Books' attack effortlessly, then punched him square in the face. Books was sent flying, and Kang cut off his arm. Books screamed in pain. His severed arm fell to the ground. The old man was shocked. Kang said, compared to what you've done, this punishment is nothing. Your final fate will now be decided by him. Turning to the old man, Kang said respectfully, Grandfather, I'm sorry if I scared you. I've taught him his lesson. He will never commit such crimes again. I leave his remaining punishment in your hands. The old man trembled and asked softly, are you really giving me the authority to decide his punishment? He looked at Books, who was crying while staring at his severed arm. The old man thought deeply and then asked Kang, may I offer this decision to our Lord? Hearing everyone talk, Books suddenly shouted, who do you people think you are, deciding my punishment? At that moment, Bark and Nell shut Books' mouth and bound him tightly. Hey, shut up, don't try to move, they warned, tying him from behind. The old man said thoughtfully, the Lord is probably still imprisoned in the castle dungeon. Kang turned to the old man and said, then please go and bring the Lord here. I leave this man's punishment entirely in your hands. The old man's face lit up with joy. Thank you so much. You are not a human. You are like an angel who came to our village and gave us freedom. The scene shifted to the castle dungeon. The Lord was shown sitting inside the cell, extremely depressed, believing that no one would ever come to rescue her. Suddenly, the old man appeared at the prison gate and called out, my Lord. Seeing him, the Lord was shocked. How did you get here? The old man unlocked the cell with a key and said calmly, my Lord, there's no need to worry. Everything is fine now. He opened the door fully and said, let us leave this place. As they walked, the old man explained, an outsider came and saved our territory. And he also taught Books a lesson. The Lord froze. What did you just say? An outsider defeated Books? How is that possible? The old man replied, I am telling you the absolute truth. He defeated him, and now you must personally decide Books' punishment. Seeing her hesitation, the old man said firmly, my Lord, trust me. Come with me, I will show you everything and introduce you to that blacksmith. Then you will understand. After a moment, the Lord nodded. All right. They moved forward together and finally entered the room. The moment the Lord stepped inside, she was stunned. Her eyes fell on Book's severed arm, and she froze in shock. She also noticed several outsiders standing there. The Lord removed her hood and said, my name is Bellin, and I am the Lord of the Ballis territory. She was revealed to be a very beautiful young blonde lady. She looked at Kang and asked, did you truly defeat Books? The old man spoke first. I wanted to punish Books myself, but I was told that the rightful authority belongs to you. The Lord slowly raised her trembling hand and stepped toward Books. Kang signaled and Books' mouth was uncovered. Books shouted, what madness is this? Bellin said coldly, Books, I trusted you deeply. I did business with you. Why did you betray me? Books tried to justify himself, but Bellin cut him off. You deceived me. That alone I could have tolerated, but what you did to the people of my territory is unforgivable. She straightened herself and declared, as the Lord of this territory, I order the following. All assets that Books illegally collected shall be confiscated and distributed among the blacksmiths. The old man bowed. Understood, my lord. Books screamed in rage. What are you saying? That's my property. Bellin continued. And as for you, Books, your punishment will ensure that you never even think of harming the innocent again. You are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment in the underground prison. Books panicked. No, that's impossible. I still have things to do. Before he could say more, Bark lifted him onto his shoulder. Enough, your journey ends here, he said, carrying him away. Books continued screaming. Please, let me go, I still want more power. Don't lock me away. No one listened. He was dragged out of the room watching this. Kang felt satisfied. Kang turned to the Lord and said politely, "Why are you standing? Please sit." The Lord bowed deeply before Kang. "Thank you so much for helping us. Because of my mistake, my people suffered greatly." She began to cry. The old man gently said, "My lord, please don't cry. None of this was your fault. It was all Book's crimes. You did your best for your people." Hearing this, the Lord composed herself and apologized to Kang. "I'm sorry you had to see such an embarrassing side of me." Kang replied, "No, it's all right. I understand everything." Suddenly Kang realized something. "I haven't even introduced myself yet." He introduced himself properly. Hearing his introduction, the Lord bowed again and thanked everyone present. Kang responded, "There's no need for thanks, we simply did what was right." Nell added, "Yes, we stood with justice." Still emotional, the Lord said, "Please forgive me. When I first heard that an outsider saved our territory, I couldn't believe it. As a child, I heard stories that outsiders were extremely selfish. That's why I sincerely thank all of you for protecting my territory." Kang replied, "King Bard sent us here, but I'm truly glad I came and was able to help you." The Lord said firmly, "You saved our territory. In return, I want to give you 50% of all the assets confiscated from Books." Kang immediately refused. "Please use that money to rebuild and develop your territory. That will be more than enough for us. We only wish for your land to prosper again and return to its former glory." Hearing this, the Lord was stunned. The old man once again thanked Kang sincerely. At that moment, a system notification appeared before Kang. Lord's Grace activated. Unique title acquired. Lord's Grace, rank SS. Special ability. When someone judges that they received lifelong unforgettable favor from you, it has an 8% chance to activate. Upon activation, they will feel a desire to be with you, high respect and loyalty, and may also have other emotions. And we all know better what kind of emotions it's talking about. And lastly, they may request to become your vassal. And the current activation count, one person whose name is Banya. Seeing this, Kang was shocked. Now, Kang was faced with two choices. He must choose one person to become his vassal, either the old sweaty blacksmith or the haughty lord herself. Let's see what naughty choice he's gonna make. Kang already had Nell in his team, so it wouldn't be bad if he added one more blonde hottie like Bellin. And just like that, Kang went from a jobless loser to a legendary blacksmith with two potential vassals. And let's be real, choosing between a sweaty old blacksmith and a blonde haughty lord? We all know what kind of forging Kang's got in mind. Now it's time for real talk. Your support is the furnace that keeps these recaps burning hot. If you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Kang's guild is just getting started. So please forge that like button. Like Kang forges legendary weapons. Hammer it down, apply pressure, make it glow. And if you're hyped to see whether Kang adds another blonde beauty to his collection, drop part 2 now in the comments. Because what comes next, Kang's not just building a guild, he's building something way more interesting. Trust me, the heat is only getting turned up from here.